council meeting Tuesday, February 13th, 2024. I'd like to start with invocation and certainly fields and remain standing for the pledge of allegiance.
Father God, we just come to you in the precious name of Jesus, and we ask for wisdom and counsel as the council and the board members come together and make decisions to better the citizens in the city. So we thank you for each department here, how they're working together. We thank you for the new people that's come on board, Bill, and those that left. We keep them in our prayers as well and wish them well. We thank you for Cherokee and Dave Mueller being on the team, and we just continue to seek you. So I ask for wisdom and guidance for everything that's going to be brought up tonight, and as they make decision as a team, that things will be done good, decent, and in order. In Jesus' name, amen.
Clerk, take roll, please.
Mayor John Eric Hoover.
Here.
Vice Mayor Linda Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilman Tom Kinsella.
Here.
Councilwoman Cherokee Sampson. Here. Councilman David Mueller. Let the record show that Councilman David Mueller is absent from tonight's meeting. City Attorney Nancy Meyer. Here. City Manager Matthew Koppler.
Here. Thank you. First up is approved council minutes. I do have, there's two sets tonight. We probably do the first one, the 116 first, because I get a change on the 23rd one, potentially. So look for a motion for the January 16th.
Motion to approve January 16th minutes.
Second. First, motion second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On the 23rd minutes, get to them here. There was a talk about the board and committee members. It was worded incorrectly, I believe. Well, where's my highlight? When we talked about council members being on committees, being a quorum, the thing in there said it was they could be on a board and committee, but council members can't be on a board. My understanding, right?
I don't remember what I said. I'll have to look it up again.
Yeah.
I know it was one, not both.
Can't be on boards.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was asked. I was thinking.
Make it to the. I highlighted it. Oh, okay. I can go down further. Sorry. It is on page 32. It says after item 6 was concluded, the council returned to item 4 and stated that one or more council members can be on a board or committee if they do not make up a majority. So it's to strike board. That's the only change I saw. So motion to approve those with that change.
Motion to approve with the changes.
Motion seconded.
Motion second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Next up, comments from the general public. I do have one signed up. Danny Fields, welcome.
My name's Danny Fields, and my address is Leo Kid, 8114. Yeah, there's a couple of things I would like to bring up to you guys' attention. I did have Ashley leave some flyers with you talking about Somebody Cares, Pasco County, the year of our calendar. So we have all the events, so you have that. You're welcome to come to this anytime. This is where the faith-based church and businesses and people come together for the better of the federal, state, and local government and the people. And we start that at the Oasis tomorrow, kicking it off all the way to Easter. And the address there is 9213 Little Road, and that's in Newport Richey, and zip code there is 34654. So as you see, we do pray the Seven Mountains influence as well. We got a booklet that we made up with Somebody Cares. We pray for the church, the government, the education, arts and entertainment, family, business, and the media. And we work in every one of them arenas as well, even like with Joy FM, put on stuff like that, work together with the local police, fire department, government, just being a resource to help in disasters or anything that might arise that we could be a part of that keeps everything under the law with the government, with Nancy and stuff like that, as we've addressed some things that how could we help and what we're allowed to do, what we're not allowed to do and stuff like that. But the main thing is, it says in 1 Timothy 2:1, therefore, that prayers and supplication would be made for all people in authority. Because, see, when you make counsel on these things, it matters first to God and to the people, because, that's a lot on your shoulders. So as a Christian, as a leader, a lot of that's off of my shoulders because I put it on God's shoulders, but I could come and partner with you and talk about the things we need. We do got events coming up that I'm going to try to get more of the churches involved here at the meetings and stuff like that, especially with a lot of topics that'll be coming up, so we could continue to work together and you could hear all the citizens on every part that lives here, that works here, plays here, lives here, and does all these different things. But we end up in the Waterfront Park, and that's Old Post Road, and that's going to be on a Saturday, March the 30th, at 10 a.m. to 12. And for those that would see this online, that's 8119 Old Post Road, Port Richey, Florida there. And we're going to have live music, games, painting. The police department will be there, fire department, and we'll tell the story about Jesus. So I hope to see you there. Blessings in Jesus' name, amen.
Thanks, Danny. That's all I had signed up by show of hands. Pat?
Pat Rogers, 4838 Sunset Boulevard. I just have a little request, and it's a safety issue. There's a palm tree at the corner of Lorenzo and Washington. And I pull up the stop sign and want to make the left turn onto Washington, and I have to actually get out into the road to see if anybody's coming because the palm fronds are sticking in the way. Just a minor thing, but we'd appreciate it if it was fixed.
You got that. Okay. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll move on. The comments from the city manager. Turn it over to Matt Copper for his comments.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. On February 8th, 2024, the Comprehensive Land Use Plan Committee held its first meeting. In addition to talking about the role of the CLUPC in the Comprehensive Land Use Plan update process, the committee discussed the process to seek public input on potential for revisions related to the Waterfront Overlay District. In attendance was Tammy Varana from Varana Consulting to discuss the options for gathering this public input, as well as discuss the steps necessary to successfully update the city's plan. The committee also discussed the necessary updates of the plan to comply with the recent evaluation and appraisal process. Next meeting scheduled for February 29th, 2024. On February 15th, 2024, at 6 p.m. here in the council chambers, the city will be hosting the Port Richey Community Redevelopment Agency Plan Update Meeting. This event is scheduled to gather feedback and public input on potential community redevelopment agency projects and priorities that the CRA should focus on in the next several years. Attendees will participate in several activities to help generate ideas that will be incorporated into the plan update. All residents of the city are encouraged to attend. Pasco County recently reached out to me to ask for a letter of support for their efforts in seeking funding through the Bridge Investment Program grant for the Grand Boulevard Bridge replacement in Newport Richey. The bridge located in the southern section of Newport Richey on Grand Boulevard spans the Cody River. They need this letter by the end of this week. If there isn't any issue with that, I'd like to submit to them a letter supporting their efforts.
By consensus, we okay with providing support?
Who?
Would be it'd be for Pasco County to the state's bridge investment program grant.
Does this support include a check from us?
No.
Okay, then
Yeah, they just want a letter saying we support.
Just vocal support.
I can give them a piece of paper.
Yeah.
President on it.
No,
Okay.
not those types. Just a letter. It takes probably 10 minutes of my time to put the letter together. So,
Okay, got it.
Tricky good?
thank you. The Cody River Landing Water Main and Restoration Project is officially out to bid. Proposals are due on February 28th and will be open to 3:30 p.m. that day in council chambers. It's anticipated that the results of the bid process will come to the city council at either the first or second meeting in March, depending upon the necessary review for the submitted proposals. The grant coordinator last week submitted a revised grant proposal to T-Mobile seeking funds to undertake the installation of sunshades at Waterfront Park. The city is seeking funding $42,000 to install the shade structure for the playground in said Waterfront Park. We finally have all the necessary quotes for the final design and engineering necessary for the US 19 and Grand Boulevard intersection golf cart crossing. 3 quotes range from $49,880 up to $80,500. We'll be bringing the recommendations to council at the next meeting for your approval. Pasco County has notified city that the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, has approved the deed transfer for 5219 Miller Bayou from Pasco County to the city of Port Richey. This is the parcel of land across the street from Olsener Park. The county indicated that an updated sale and purchase agreement would need to be signed, and I saw that we actually received these updated sale and purchase agreements, so I'll be giving it to the city attorney for her review, and I hope we'll have it on the next meeting so we can facilitate getting that deed into the hands of the city as soon as possible. There's lots to say, I apologize. Based upon council feedback at the last meeting, staff sent out surveys to the residents of Blue Point to the residents seeking their input on whether the small landscaped area in the cul-de-sac should be removed. We sent out 19 surveys to the residents of Blue Point. Of those responding, 15 are okay with removal and only 3 wish to keep it. Follow-up notice was provided to the residents, letting them know we'd be speaking to council about this subject tonight. Based on their response, I would recommend the removal of the landscape feature. So if there's no...
Yeah, by consensus, we go with removing that?
I agree.
Remove it. Take it out.
We will get right on that. Public Works is nearing the completion of the sprucing up of Winslow Park. The final detail will be the replacement of the 4 dolphins in the fountain. Staff was able to locate identical replacement dolphins and have placed the order. Public Works has moved on, is nearly complete with the cleanup of Olsener Park, which should be open tomorrow. So I think they've been doing a really good job of getting those parks cleaned up. I know we've gotten a lot of good feedback from residents about how pleased they were with that. Following up on the updates out last week regarding the restroom facility at Brasher Park, staff has received a quote for a structural engineer to review the building to ensure it's structurally sound and what work will need to be done to assure the structural integrity of the building. This review will be complete as quickly as possible so we can get it open as soon as possible. We are still waiting actually on one more potential quote to come in, and we will then be able to get that going as quick as possible. And that is my report for this evening.
Thank you, sir. And with that, I'll come back to the comments for the mayor and city council. Start with Councilman Kinsella.
Couple things, Mr. City Manager. One of the things I was looking on and I know that I'm a broken record, you've heard it, but our website, the calendar, the events, unless I have a very, very old website, I don't see any of these meetings on there. I looked at the meeting coming up on Thursday, it wasn't there. I looked at the meeting for a week from today. I didn't see it on there. I'm an old guy with an old computer. I could have an old version. I don't know, but I didn't see any dates, and I'm looking at upcoming meetings. I don't recall seeing any of these on there as well.
Yeah, you're correct. They're some of them missing. So,
But I do know that watching the club meeting that was held, one of the things they were talking about is getting out there, getting the input from the citizens, getting them to come to see us. And if we can't communicate properly or we can't get that communication out, we're not going to get anybody to come and give us our input. So I'm hoping that we could really jump on this to get that communication piece out there and really, because I do know when we start talking about the waterfront overlay district, wanting the public input, we need their input. And historically, we will have 3-4 people here. And I'm hoping that we don't have that and we can really go forward. Talking about the Winslow Park, the Dolphins, I don't know if we should comment on that, but my recommendation, get rid of the Dolphins. I'm looking at the cost factor. Just put one fountain out in the center. Let it blow pretty, water high. But anytime one breaks, trying to replace it, I think there's more costs involved in that. And we don't need dolphins there. Really don't. Maybe just a little fountain in the center. Keep it cheap, keep it inexpensive, and moving forward. My suggestion on that. I just can't see.
I think they're fixed. I think the dolphins are fixed.
They haven't been installed yet.
No?
I know I believe he's already ordered them, and
Yeah.
they've already been paid. So he's
There are three of them,
setting
right?
up a time to install them. So
how much
We-
were they?
$3.99.
about 10,000-15,000
For each fin.
for each fit.
$3.99, wasn't it? I think $3.99.
I don't know that number off the top of my head, but it wasn't that expensive. No, it wasn't that. Yeah, it was like $600, I think, for them.
Okay. I mean, you've already moved. I just can't see spending the money. And next one breaks, the citizens are going to be complaining that 3 are working, 2 are working, the others aren't. But you know what? You have one fountain in the center, keeps everybody happy. Just my suggestion on that. That's all. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Vice Mayor Rodriguez.
What time is the next meeting for the comprehensive land use? The date is the 29th, but there's no time there.
Sorry, it's 3 p.m. 4 o'clock? Oh, 4 o'clock. That one's 4.
And what is the update for the audio for YouTube that people cannot hear us well, or it's horrible still, apparently.
Is it during the workshop?
Now, anytime we're using these, people that are watching on TV hear sporadically. I know I've tried to watch, I've only missed one, but the one time I tried to, it's terrible. Or if you try to watch other meetings,
That
it's still
microphone
not
is
good.
fabulous. Anybody who talks there, you could hear them very clearly. Back over here along this area, it's sporadic.
I get complaints a
it's
lot
not
from
good.
people that they try to watch the meetings and then they just turn them off halfway because they just can't, I can't deal with it, to be honest with you. I try, I suffer through, but it's suffering because you can't hear all the time. So if we can continue to look into that.
Do you want to comment on that, or?
We will look into that, find a solution.
I know I'd asked for a boom mic for me, and
What about the rest of us?
Well, all of us, if y'all want to get one, but my thought was if we tried that, since I talk a lot, obviously, and we reposition these, maybe it'd be better. But I'm all for changing them out myself. But we spend a lot of money on this system, so
I would just I would really prefer definitive direction because the quote for that one boom mic alone came, it's very expensive.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
nearing $1,000 alone
Oh,
for that
wow.
one. Yeah, so I would really like a definitive direction because if we're gonna change these out again, that's fine. It's just more money that we're putting into this system.
So looking at these, we all have to share. If there was a microphone individually, I'm wondering, I'm not the expert, I'm wondering, would that help?
Can you watch it on TV? And have you watched it? And can you?
I do my minutes.
She does her
from
minutes
YouTube.
off it every time, so we do watch it, and it's.
But is it
I've
off
heard-
the computer or is it off the TV?
No. Through the internet. I use YouTube because it has captions
Mm-hmm.
as well. So I don't do my minutes through Boxcast, which is streaming through YouTube.
Mhm.
I do my minutes through YouTube.
Is there, obviously, we just recently did that. Is there an option we reach out to that company and see if they're willing to swap these out or something to see if there's just the amount of trouble we've had with it?
Let me go home and watch tonight's meeting, and we'll address it again next meeting. Okay,
Okay.
let's do that.
That's
We'll
fair.
just do that. We'll address it one more time. I'll go listen to it. Y'all can listen to it as well, and we can come up with a consensus and go from that. Sal, is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay.
I know the workshop. I know I did get word on the workshop that it was hard, but
Well, that's a
demographic was
different scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a different scenario. So let's watch it today. I'll watch today's if everybody could, and then we can go from there, and then come up with another suggestion next meeting. Okay. Thank you.
Councilwoman Sampson.
Who's in control of the social media for the city? Who's the person to talk to for that?
So
Sal.
that would be me.
Okay, cool. And I noticed that you've been posting out there like events and stuff. Do you have like a social media plan in place?
No, we don't have a specific plan. It's just, as other entities reach out to us, council, general public, Pasco County will release certain things that are going on. Newport Richey will have an event. We go ahead and just, forward those and post those accordingly.
Okay. Have you ever considered getting a plan in place for social media?
Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to have any type of direction or organization. If council, decides that they want certain things posted or a certain direction to go in, that we'd be more than happy to go in that. That's not an issue.
Okay, awesome. That's all.
I just a couple things. I went to Tallahassee at the end of January to advocate for our three appropriations that we had there. I met with Hooper and Yeager on those. I don't have a status of those yet, but hopefully they'll make it through the process. Obviously, it's a long process, and that's ultimately gets signed by the governor. So we've got two of them were one was $2 million, another was about almost $2 million, and then 125,000, I think. So several $1 million there that could potentially come our way. So hopefully that will work out.
And what would they be for, Eric?
So there was
First one that we submitted was a water tank for the water.
an admin building, right?
Right, yeah. So I think we were seeking 1.8 million from the state on that, and our share would be 200,000 for it. Again, we would be upgrading the water tank from the current size up to 1 million gallons, which is very important for future growth as well as maintaining the current level of potable water for the residents. Another one was looking at the upgrades, I think, to our sanitary sewer lift stations. Again, most of them are at that age where we need to be doing some major updates to them, as well as look at, I think, the emergency generators, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah. That all part of that. And then the last was on for some stormwater improvements. I don't know if that was pump stations or.
That was for the pipe sizes that we have throughout the city.
Okay.
Change them out according and set them according to code.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. So all three of those were submitted to Hooper's office by the timeline. We only got the water went with the admin building to Yeager's office, so he only got the one, but they're all up there. We'll see how it turns out.
Okay. Thank you.
And it's obviously there's some legislation being bounced around that could affect us. One of note is the ability to surcharge 25% of the water customers outside the city limits. They're looking at taking that away.
Mhm.
So there's a few things going on. Anyway, the next thing I wanted to bring up is, actually going back to the calendar comment. Is there a way on there, once we put those, that people can subscribe to that calendar to where it actually pulls into their calendars? I don't think that ability is there. I don't know if we have the ability, it just isn't implemented or not, but
That bill,
I would actually like to have that myself.
it's there. It's at the bottom right there. Subscribe to calendar.
Okay.
Mhm.
Let's see, I must look out there. And along the same lines, at least for the council members, when you put that out, if you could send a calendar invite to our email so we just accept it in there,
Of course.
it'd be easier for you to keep track of that. On code reviews, I know we talked briefly about, originally we sent that to planning and zoning for all the code to be reviewed there and then come back. We had a subsequent conversation after that about possibly bringing those code reviews back here and only putting ones that actually need planning and zoning review to planning and zoning, but we actually review the ones that really don't need planning and zoning involvement. And specifically, the boat rental code. I was reached out to again. Obviously, boating season is starting to ramp up, and it was concerned about that operation going on down there at the waterfront. So I want to see if we can get that on the agenda, at least that one to review, and see if we want to put any changes together for that.
Why are we not getting it the normal channels? Why are we skipping a
Well, I
step?
don't think it's necessarily normal channels for planning and zoning. I mean, planning and zoning can do it, but I don't
Well,
think
I thought that was our process.
that was
If it's a planning and zoning code, it needs to go to planning and zoning first
right.
before it comes here. Anything else, at one point, the consensus was from the council to send things to planning and zoning and just kind of direct them, start looking at some code provisions.
Okay.
But then you guys kind of pulled that back. I don't know exactly which provision you're talking about, so I don't know if it's a one that needs to go to planning and zoning first or not.
Jet skis.
That's
I mean,
WOD.
Well, in general,
that's what started that
Okay, so the
discussion.
WOD,
but-
that's already going to planning and zoning,
but
right?
it's a broader conversation because there's some boats that are being rented here that don't conform to what that code says.
Right, but that's the WOD provision that's going to planning and zoning in March. Isn't that going to planning and zoning? No? I thought it was.
Well, I think that's what's being discussed right now.
Okay.
He's
Okay.
asking not to do that process. That's what I'm
It needs-
asking. Why are we not
Yeah,
doing?
if it's a planning and zoning code provision, it needs to go to them first.
Is that
Yeah, that's per your rules.
okay? Well,
Yeah,
that's fine. In general, though, there are some that don't. That
Right,
obviously calls for
right.
that.
Anything
So,
that's not planning and zoning can go where here or wherever you direct it.
so since that's a hot topic, is that on the next planning and zoning meetings agenda?
It will be.
That one, okay. If we can get that one on the next one, because like I said, there's a concern around that one. And then in general, obviously, we had talked about possibly bringing back the ones that don't need to go to planning and zoning. Because obviously, we're loading planning and zoning up with a lot of stuff, and
Mhm.
and really some of that doesn't need to go through them.
And
my
that's fine. It's just, I mean, we have a process. We need to stick. We can't start altering our process,
Yeah.
picking and choosing, because
Exactly.
then we're going to be accused of favoritism to some person, and so we need to follow our process as
No,
written and
Is
follow
it, is
that.
it, is the, and that's what the question is our process that everything goes to planning and zoning, even stuff that doesn't necessarily need to?
Right.
Or do we decide that we're gonna divide that up, only planning and zoning related, codes need to go there, the rest of them we can review here? That's the question.
Well, we've already discussed that, and
Well,
that
that's
we've
one
made that
particular
decision.
code, but there's a plethora of them out there.
Right. So to make sure we're all on the same page, I don't know what happened in the past, obviously.
yeah.
Since I've been here, there was a conversation to ask planning and zoning, per the direction of the council, which is allowed per the code, to quote, review the code.
Mhm.
Not really any direction, any specific code provisions, any certain section. So that process began. It kind of got pulled back, and I can't remember the exact conversation, but through one conversation here that was kind of put on hold for a little bit to kind of figure out if that's the process you want to go through, because that does take time. It takes a lot of time. And they're trying really hard, but they're not giving any real direction of what code provisions need to be looked at. So they're just kind of picking ones.
Mhm.
So they need some more guidance if that's the way you want to continue, in my opinion, to help them know what they're looking at and why they're looking at it, perhaps. So it's really up to how you guys want to proceed. If it is planning and zoning, it does need to go to them. If it's not planning and zoning, no mandate that it go anywhere in particular. It can start here. It can start with you asking me to look at it. It could start with you asking planning and zoning to look at it.
Okay.
It's really up to what you want to do with the non-planning and zoning code provisions.
Very good, thank you.
Hope that helps.
Yeah, no, but obviously we've got several and that you guys have kind of came up with. And I wonder if maybe by next meeting, we can look at those and say, these come back and then we look at, either we have a special meeting to address them, or we can put them on our agenda going forward. I'm open for suggestions, obviously, but
Many of what they looked at, if I'm remembering without my notes in front of me, they suggested no changes, which is why they didn't come back here. Ones that they suggested changes to, we have, I think, one tonight that they had suggested changes to and that you're going to talk about. But I have to look at my notes more thoroughly. I think the rest of them were, let's talk about it again next time. Let's talk about it again next time. So a lot of them have been punted for more information, more conversation. So the ones they've looked at have either been don't want to do anything, or they've been given some recommendations. They've asked to continue a conversation. So I don't know if that helps.
Thank you.
and last thing I may have mentioned this last time, I can't remember, but regarding the Port Richey Chamber of Commerce, that their website is up. Businesses can go out and join that. And the grand opening is scheduled for March 1st at
4:30.
4:30 it starts. So just to make you all aware of that. That being said, that's all I had. So move to the consent agenda. Look for a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion second. Actually, I skipped. I'll come back to boards and committees. I apologize. So motion second. Any further discussion? Any comments from the general public? Seeing none, move to vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Going back to comments from boards and committees, are there any comments from the boards and committees?
I do. The 21st, next Wednesday, is Meet Your Neighbor at Alex's, 5:30. So come on out. She always puts out a good spread, Mama does, so come on out.
Any other boards and committees? Okay, we'll move on. Okay. First up, council business, item number 3, public hearing of the revised Keys of Cody River plats. My understanding that we're postponing that, so I need a motion to table.
Motion to table.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? Anyone from the public like to speak? So you don't have to put a vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, item number 4, second reading of ordinance number 24-694, calling for a special election on April 9th, 2024 to fill a vacancy on city council. I'll pass it to Mr. Copeland for introduction.
Yes, this ordinance amendment or ordinance calls for the special election to fill the one seat that is not up for re-election in April, which was Mr. Colombo's. So approving this will put his seat up for a special election.
I will need to read the ordinance.
Yeah,
title.
if you could read it.
Ordinance number 24-694, an ordinance of the city of Port Richey, Florida, calling for a special election on April 9th, 2024, for the purpose of filling a vacancy on the city council, identifying that the April 9, 2024 special election will be conducted by Pasco County Supervisor of Elections, providing for a repeal of ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith to the extent of such conflict, and providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve the ordinance number 24-694, special election.
Motion second.
Motion second. Further discussion? Anyone from the public like to speak? Seeing no hands, put a vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, item number 5, first reading of ordinance number 24-695, amending section 127-47 of Article 3 of Chapter 127 of the City of Port Richey Code to allow for recreational vehicle parks in the agricultural zoning district. I'll pass it over to Mr. Copper for introduction.
So this is actually the first of 3 changes to our codes related to allowing for an RV park to be built within the agricultural zoning district A1. This one merely allows it to be a use within that district.
I'll read the title.
Yep, go ahead.
Ordinance number 24-695, an ordinance of the city of Port Richey, Florida, amending section 127-47 of Article 3 of Chapter 127 of the City of Port Richey Code of Ordinances to allow for recreational vehicle parks in the agricultural zoning district, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date.
I'll open, I highlighted a couple things here to ask about. On page 60, which is letter C, actually number 8, recreational vehicle park subject to requirements of section 127-58. It says recreational vehicle park is not subject to subsection D through J of this section. My question is should that include C as well? Because if you roll down to the actual 127-58, it specifies that there are no special exception uses for C as well. I don't know if that's needs to stated here as well, or I'm sorry. So it says
D through
D
J.
and J doesn't apply.
Right.
But see here, special exception uses, which if you go down to the actual 127-58, it states in item C, special exception uses, no special exception uses shall be permitted within PUD zoning district. This is on the next.
The next one.
Yeah, go to the next.
That's one.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay. So your question is, should on the first, on ordinance 24-695.
Should that say C through J apply?
I don't think so. The C in ordinance 24-695 is noting what special exceptions are allowed, and a RV park is not a special exception that's allowed. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, I just,
Okay. And then obviously the other provision says no special exceptions.
right.
So it's not per ordinance 24-695, the special exception uses that are allowed in subsection C does not include the RV park, so it doesn't apply to the
Okay.
RV park.
And then I had also the D where it says accessory uses.
That is exempted in number 8. No, go up. Sub 8 includes D. D is not subject.
Right, but then when you roll down to that other one, it states accessory uses permitted within PUDs shall be set forth within section 127-92.
The same provision on the next ordinance.
Okay, so we're good. It looks all odd to me. So
It's consistent. It is, yeah.
Okay.
It's tough when you have to go back.
Yeah.
That's why it's good to look at that, because sometimes we miss numbers, but those. are
Okay,
consistent.
just want to make sure you're good. Okay, that's all I had. Any other first discussion on that?
I have a couple of questions because I did talk to people because I'm not 100% familiar with all of this. So one of the questions someone asked me, and I don't know the answer, that's why I'm bringing it up so that we can get the answer. We're changing the zoning of the property to a PUD. No, we're within the A1 district.
The first ordinance is just allowing recreational vehicle parks subject to another provision that doesn't exist yet to be allowed in the A1 district. It's allowing the use for other
Right, within the
criteria.
A1 district.
Right.
If we were changing the zoning for this specific property, that would require notification of neighbor, that there's other state law notifications.
Different process.
So,
But no, within this city,
yes,
the code, there's no provision in any zoning district to allow for an RV park currently.
correct. But the question that was posed to me that I don't know the answer to was, normally it would be 2 different processes, and if you were going to put an RV park in, then you would have to notify neighbors that there's other state laws that have to be done. Are we putting it in the A1 district so that we don't have to do that?
No.
What's the rationale for keeping it in the A1 as opposed to making it its own PUD?
I don't know that there is. Well, okay, that's two different things, and you might need to jump into to help out. That it's 2 different. So the A1 district that's allowed currently, unless this passes, right? There's no recreational vehicle park allowed at A1 or anywhere else in the city. Okay.
Let me just add to that question.
Yeah.
So, that being said, you can't just create a PUD allowing recreational
Right.
vehicles
because
because we don't zoning to have them anywhere.
PUD takes you back to, it has to be allowable use within that zoning district.
So you gotta have the ability within the actual zoning to allow for it. The PUD just encapsulates a set of rules for that specific area.
So the A1 was selected to include this language because that is happens to be what the property is that this topic came up. If someone wanted it in a different zoning district, that could be a different conversation, and it could be allowed in a different zoning district.
So for example, commercial property, if somebody wanted to put a recreational vehicle park in commercial property, even with this in place, they could not. Because we can't put that PUD in commercial, because commercial doesn't allow for recreational vehicles.
Put it in another A1 district.
Another
Yes.
A1, correct. If there was more
Now,
A1.
does that still have to come back to approval for us, or can anybody, if we approve this, can any A1 area within our city now put a PUD up, or does that need to be
No.
approved?
It would go, as it notes, it has to follow the requirements of what's going to become possibly section 127-58, which would be the PUD requirements, which would bring them to the city to work that process through.
So
Wouldn't be
it would
automatic.
still need approval
Right, it
from
wouldn't be an
us to have,
automatic.
we can't pop up with 4,000 different RV parks.
Right.
And I think the other reason why A1 district makes sense is the land use around it, I think, is more accommodating for an RV park. Some of our more commercial districts, just you don't have the space that would facilitate that type of development.
As you said, this is new to us. We don't have one. We've not gone over this before, so there are questions. So this is
Absolutely.
just, I want to make sure that we do, what we do is right for the entire city, and that's why my questions come up. So, okay, thank you.
And this PUD is specific to this particular A1 agricultural zoning. So if somebody else came in, let's say we acquired another, I think that's the only A1 we have in the city anyway. But say we annex and we grab some more A1 property at some point. They can't just come in and say, I want to use this PUD for us. That's specific to that property. Correct?
This is the only A1 we have in the,
No.
in the city?
So anybody can,
No, hold on. So if you obtain more A1 property and someone wants to build a recreational vehicle park on that property, they would have to go through what may become section 127-58, which is the PUD for RV parks, and go through that process with the city. It would not be automatic.
yeah. But we could deny that even though the zoning allows for it.
If the PUD process did not work. It's not, so that's why you can see on number 8, the new language specifically says recreational vehicle parks subject to the requirements of section 127-58. We'll see in a little bit. That's the new provision that's been drafted. So the RV park always has to go through the PUD process with the city. They can't just buy property,
And build
obtain
RV
an
park.
A1 zoning and build an RV park.
Does this have to go, or did this go through planning and zoning already? Or does this have to go, or not applicable?
It
did.
did go. It did go.
Do we have
It's grown since then. I'm sorry, it's grown. Planning and zoning discussed whether to allow the RV park in the A1 district, and they agreed with the idea.
Yeah, and I thought I read that in
Yes.
here. I just wanted to ask the question out
Yes.
loud. Thank you.
Do we have a map or something showing us exactly where this is, what we're talking about, what it encompasses?
Well, right now, this is just talking about anywhere in the city that is zoned A1, which my understanding, there's just one parcel. No, there's two. Okay, he's shaking his head at me.
They all butt each other though
Yeah.
in that same area.
So- So I don't have a map. I don't know exactly where the properties are located, but so the ordinance in front of you is just allowing in only A1 zoning a recreational vehicle park if it meets the requirements of another section that we're going to talk about in a minute. So it's just those two properties is what I understand now.
Yeah, my only thing is, I don't know what else is affected. If we put it here, we prove this here, and there's adjoining land, I mean, is this going to spread like a wildfire? I mean, potentially, can it? I mean, I don't know where this is.
So it would, for it to grow bigger than what's allowed now, you'd have properties that have to be rezoned to A1. That's step one. This is only going to be allowed in an A1 zoning district, plus they have to go through the PUD process with the city. So this
A1 is on Congress next to the skating rink in that area.
is that,
If that's what you're asking. You're asking where it is?
So I understand the general idea, but again, what we're looking at, is this one specific parcel? Or is this a much greater area in this parcel that they're looking at is within? I'm trying to visualize what all is included, because I have not seen it.
I don't know if I can answer
I
that
want,
question.
I want to say there's 3 parcels, they're all abutting. I don't know it for a fact, but there's more than just one parcel, but there's 3 parcels, I think, that are abutting each other, so they could all be one parcel, but they're separate owners, right? And they're all 3A1, is my understanding. But they're isolated in that one area.
So again, I'm just reading this on paper. I have no full concept of what all is included. So I'm having some difficulties trying to digest this, not knowing. I wish there was something more where we could have seen, here it is, here's the Congress skating rink, here Congress, here's the area that we're talking about. And I have not seen that. I don't know.
Do we have a zoning map that we pull up?
We're actually looking into that right now.
Okay.
I was just going to suggest that.
Me too.
I mean, would have helped if we had this, you know, so we could have a better understanding. But I don't know, and I'm having some difficulties trying to get the big picture because there's 3 items here that are apparently all related. And my second question is, if we vote against one, does it affect the other 2?
Yes.
I mean, regardless of which one?
Yeah, it will affect the next one that comes up. I still think the third one in that probably still needs to be clarified.
Yeah, the third
So-
one is different.
That's not-
Yeah,
that's
the third
separate.
one's different. It came up in the same conversation that we realized it needed some
I
clarification.
know
but
this
it
has
doesn't
been
affect-
going on, but I wish I would have, you know, we would have be able to see what we're looking at, what we're discussing and have a better understanding, because I don't have that. I'm missing that. So I'm asking if, I don't know if we should table this until the next one and get this information so we have a better understanding to move forward with.
There we go. I don't know. And I don't, you know, we don't want to put anybody on the spot and have to make a decision if you need more information, but that's what they're able to show.
So this is the property right here. And this is Congress Street.
And is that the only property right that your cursor is going on that's in the A1, that's an A1 zoning?
I think those 2 up there north, those are both A1 as well.
The one, like, where it says Commerce Center, or the ones below?
Yeah, to the right of Commerce Center, I think.
Those 2 empty green
These 2?
spaces? Yeah.
Did you guys not find actual zoning map that showed the?
This is the
code?
property appraiser.
Okay.
This is the map that they have. In his property, if I don't exit out of it, it's outlined in blue.
Now, let me ask a question about the PUD. So let's say that obviously the big property is the one here. Then you have that little A1 property. It's off to the side behind that parking lot there, off to the right of Commerce Center.
Sorry. This one, is that what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
both of it's
This one?
yeah, that one there, I think.
And,
Both of them, yeah, both of those 2.
okay.
So the PUD would not apply to am I correct here? The PUD would follow the boundaries of the property that we approve it for.
The PUD would apply to whoever is the applicant and whatever deal is made with the city.
Right.
Right.
So those separate owners.
Right.
So
Okay.
But they could apply for it as well.
they could apply for it as well. That's correct.
Yes, they would be, anyone that has property that's zoned A1 would be able to apply for a recreational vehicle park for the requirements of the other section we're going to talk about.
And we could say no just because we've already got one. We have that
Well, you-
ability, right?
You would follow, if they come to you with an application, you'd have to follow the proper process. I'm not going to say now, you could say yes or no, they'd have to follow the process, and then you may not approve it, you may approve it. But there's certain criteria you'd want to follow, and
They can't just do it, I guess. So
right,
like,
they have to get.
it's not like buying a property and putting a storage facility on. We can't stop that from happening if it's allowed
Right,
use.
if it's an A1 district and they want to build an RV park, this makes them have to go through the PUD process. The ordinance you're looking at now sends that, it says subject to the requirements of section 12758, which would be the PUD for RV parks, and they'd have to meet those requirements and discuss, go through that process with the city to be approved.
Well, one thing, it has to be 5 acres. So, right, minimum of 5 acres. So those two property is there, couldn't even do it. The only thing that really happened is if,
Well, they could if they went with the other property.
well, if the other property was to buy those
Yeah.
and combine that, then yes, you could extend the PUD.
And that would require them to come back to the city too.
Okay. Stupid question. Can you make a commercial property? You have a storage unit, storage facility's got 22 acres and now you
Car
want to
wash
make
and
it,
storage
you
units.
want to make it an A1 and then you want to do this. Can you do that?
You'd
I
have
don't know
to,
the answer to
Gotta
that.
go rezoning.
you'd have to ask to be rezoned.
Okay.
So it'd be a
Well, yeah, you have to
yeah.
ask me rezoned, but
Yes,
it's possible.
It's definitely possible to ask. Would it happen? It's hard to say yes or no to those
Yeah,
kind of
I
questions.
understand that. Yeah, I got that. Thank you.
So I think the focus here is, one, do we want to allow RV parks? And this is the avenue to get there. It's got to be a minimum of 5 acres to qualify for the PUD process.
Where is that? Is
That's
that
the
in the
next
other one?
ordinance.
Okay.
That's the next one.
I couldn't
So,
remember.
so basically what this first one does allows for you to have an RV park within the context of the PUD, which is the next item. Because if you don't have any underlying zoning that allows for RV parks, the rest of it is a moot point.
I understand.
Sure, yes, Amy?
I was just going to ask Councilman Kinsella if the picture, if that helped him, if that didn't help.
Well, it helped a little bit, again, that map, I don't know what all is. Apparently, you're saying that there's more of A1 up there than what they're asking here. It would have been nice to see what all is this A1 that you're talking about, and then what's that piece of property that we're doing here, the changes we're doing here. How is that affected? So,
this-
yeah, again, I don't know which one's A1 up there and then which piece of,
So this would,
change.
this would apply to every A1 zoning, every piece of property in the city zoned A1. This first ordinance applies
so
to
then
all.
everything that's A1 up there, this would apply to.
Correct.
If it's 5 acres.
Well,
correct.
no.
No, because that's in the
Well,
next
this would apply,
Yes,
right.
Right. The
but-
two steps kind of merge together. So every piece of property that's zoned A1,
Could potentially have,
this would apply to because this is the A1 zoning district ordinance, our code. But to actually do a recreational vehicle park, this code sends you to a different code provision, which is the PUD provision, which is what we're going to talk about next, which you have to have at least 5
minimum
acres.
5 acres.
So they kind of go together, but they are two separate steps.
So if
That makes
if you've got 5 acres or more, you could potentially put RV park in if you have A1 zone.
But it has to come before council every time.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's go through the PUD process.
And currently, this is the only A1 in the city.
There's,
Well, that area,
That area,
that area is the.
I don't think there's any other area in the city that has A1 size of that big wooded area.
That size, no, but there is other A1.
There's,
Spots up to it.
right, but not
Not that general area
Like-
is all a.
on the west side of 19, there's no A1, right? I don't remember seeing it. I think it's just that specific area.
Right.
And it's probably 3 parcels. And only one of them is 5 acres.
So this is all, so on this ordinance, there's the purpose, the permitted, principal uses and structures. That's all that's pertaining to this. That's what we're voting on.
So the first ordinance is your current A1 ordinance.
Right.
Code, your current A1 code. Mine's not underlined, it's number 8. B8, where we're talking about recreational vehicle park, should be underlined. That's new language.
That's the only change,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
And we'll
okay.
fix that, yes.
Okay,
I think that
okay.
might cause some confusion.
That's right, because I'm looking at saying, it's, all it is a purpose and,
Yeah.
so what are we looking at? There's nothing on
yeah,
here.
So this is
Okay.
your current A1 code.
So you added number 8.
Number 8's been added.
Okay, okay.
And we will underline it.
Now I
Shall
understand.
we move forward?
Now I'm totally
That helps.
unconfused.
Now, the next one,
Get
Right.
some meat and potatoes.
Yep, I got pinks on that one too. Okay,
and so nothing else in the A1, your city's current A1 code provision. Let me make sure I see this. Nothing else was changed, I'm making sure. There was a Scrivener's error on one of them, I can't remember which one it was though.
There's one right down here on J, that little squiggly line. I don't know if it's in here.
I think that was it, yeah, but, so I believe J, one, where it says, section 127-94,
Mhm.
that number was a different number, which was an incorrect number. It was it was a provision that doesn't exist. So we just fixed that as a Scrivener's error.
Okay.
And then the signature block has got those lines on too, so.
I don't know what happened. We'll get things underlined. So the only thing new is subsection 8, recreational vehicle park.
That was an important piece to miss on this because I didn't get that.
I
That
did
was
not
there.
notice the lines weren't there until I looked at it when I sat down. And then J, we just changed that number 127-94. It doesn't even show what the old number was, so I'll have to fix this because that needs to be on there. But it was like 94-27 or some code number that I
So
don't.
it's probably an older, it was probably the same code, but it was before you codified.
So we just fixed the number. Doesn't change what it stood for, just actually gave someone somewhere to go to as they were directed to.
Okay.
So I'll look for a motion or further discussion. Well, I gotta get a motion in a second.
Motion to pass the first reading of ordinance number 24-695.
Second.
A motion second, further discussion. Anyone from public like to speak? Oh, I do have sign up. Mr. McClary, welcome.
Todd McClary, 8731 Betty Street in Port Richey. I have a little bit of a problem with this specific item, not necessarily with the RV park in and of itself, but like you said, RV parks can pop up anywhere where there's an A1. There are 2 other parcels. One is over 6 acres, so theoretically you can have another RV park pop up right next to it. If it's a conforming use, I don't care what they say. If you reject one PUD and approve the other one, you're going to have 2 PUDs. You're going to have 2 RV parks right next to each other. So that's one thing you have to be careful of with this. 2, this specific item or this specific issue, the RV park you're listing as a core use for the space. Then you're saying, well, none of the items D through J conform to the use of an RV park, so we actually have to put it over into a different category. So by definition, that's a special exception use, not a core use. And what that means is any person who's coming in with a PUD actually has to go to a planning board of adjustment or zoning board to go through and say, hey, I'm trying to put this RV park here. It's not a core use for the space. It is another check and balance to someone coming in. It's like saying, instead of rezoning, you have an A1 and you're rezoning to an RV zone. It's a special exception under A1. So the neighbors then have the opportunity, or the public has the opportunity to go and speak their mind whether they do or don't want an RV park there before it even goes to the PUD stage. And you're not wasting, the developer's time putting together the plans for the PUD that ultimately gets rejected, and you get the immediate feedback from the public whether it can or can't be there. That's the purpose of the special exception uses. It's that extra check and balance, and it goes through the Board of Adjustment for that. So that's one issue I have with it. The mere fact that, I'm not sure, and again, this is process, and this is a little bit what I do, but I'm not sure why you didn't do like an RV PUD. You can create PUDs for anything you want and just allow it within an A1, and then it exists as itself, because you're still, again, as a core use for this specific A1 zoning, it doesn't conform at all. So you're asking the PUD to make it conform to a non-conforming instance. It's just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't know if the building department has had any input to it, but the other thing is, I know I watched the latest planning and zoning meeting that I had seen on it. And that zoning meeting essentially went to the, what it was, oh, we just want to make an RV as part of the A1 zoning. It didn't say anything about adding PUDs. Has the zoning board seen the PUD designation? And it hasn't, also, they didn't have it taking out all of the elements D through J of the A1 zoning. So you are making a lot of changes outside of what the Planning and Zoning Board has seen, although they did agree with the RV designation. It's still kind of a mess of the process. So you're deviating from the process in going through this. The proper way is to put this back before planning and zoning. Do you agree with it? And then it should go back to you guys. So that's my comments on this specific.
Thanks, Tom. Anyone else? Mr. Todd, welcome.
8301 Congress Street, Matthew Todd. First and foremost, I want to thank the council and y'all being able to take my time and hear me out. I'm kind of a little bit appalled with what Mr. McCleary said. To give you an idea, this area is surrounded by industrial park all the way around me. Mr. McCleary doesn't know the first thing about my property. I cleared over 5,000 tires. I've cleared the ditches so the streams would run through. I made this place look like a park, okay? There is no residential houses around me, and I apologize if I seem somewhat angry, because I am. This has been a process that's been going on for 3 years. A gentleman like that is what's causing this city to go backwards and be stagnant. I'm giving this city a gift. Mr. McCleary should be thanking me for trying to give you a gift to basically bring cash back into the city. Okay, I'm dealing with homeless people there that he doesn't even have a clue about. Okay, and in all due respects, all the mumbo jumbo that he just said, we've been through every bit of this. We've been through the planning and zoning process. I can't thank the staff, the city attorney, the new city manager of the process that it was. And I don't want to be disrespectful, but guys, we're trying to help the city to generate tax dollars. This property set there, you want to leave it like it is, leave it like it is. You'll generate nothing that way. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not being boast and brag. The property's paid for. I don't care either way. I'm trying to hand you a gift. These people are the right fit for the property. I don't know, blah, blah. Guys, it makes no sense. I don't mean to be disrespectful. It's about generating tax dollars for the city. How long ago was it that the employees were needing tax dollars to getting pay raises, to give pay raises to these people? Where's the money coming from? You want to just stop? Our employees deserve better pay. How do we get to that point? There's only one way we're going to get to that point. We got to work together, stop the belly aching and the bickering and making a big deal out of nothing. As far as the properties that go around, the ones that butt up to me, they look like dumps, junkyards is what it is. Smashed up tractor trucks, pallets stacked up high. Mr. Kinsella, anytime you want to come over there, I will gladly personally give any single one of you sitting on that council a tour, and I offered it multiple times, and you would say, you know what, I appreciate what the man's doing. I spend every day cleaning trash out of the ditch to keep from killing the the wildlife on the thing. It's just appalling what I just heard, that we're trying to help you. I apologize. I don't need to be angry, but it frustrates me what I'm trying to do for the city. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt. Anyone else? I can't head back. Sorry. Sharon?
Sherry Scher, 7802 Davis Street. Sorry, I'm short. 7802 Davis Street. I just want to comment that if something is not crystal clear to every member on this board before it comes here, there has to be a disconnect somewhere. So either the presentation that you got wasn't clear, or when it went through planning and zoning, something wasn't clear. But it shouldn't be to the point where you have to discuss it this much by the time something gets here for you to vote on. So if it's not crystal clear, vote no. So there was a disconnect somewhere. So you should have an understanding before you vote on it. Not go, oh, well, somebody else said it's okay now, so I guess I'm going to say it's okay. That's all I have to say.
Anyone else? Ann? No. Okay, I'll bring it back. I'm going to add a few things and I'll for discussion and we'll take a vote. I've been to the property, but outside of that, I want to point out that we have lots of other properties, commercial properties, specifically, that are wooded areas that I think, like Matt brought up, you have homeless getting in there. Here we have a specific Ag 1 zoning area that he personally, when he purchased that, it was a wreck, right? And he's went through and he's cleaned it up. It's a beautiful property, probably, if not the most beautiful, probably the second most beautiful property in the city. That being said, I think it's important as a city that we put things in place that put us on the map, that draw people to the area, that provide a resource for the city. You know, right now that property is a beautiful property. Only Matt sees it, right? I know it's been in the works a while. That buyers interested in doing something with that property. You know, at the end of the day, at some point, could it be rezoned for office buildings or multifamily, whatever? There's process to do that. But right now, it's just a big open area. I also think it's important that when we think about what we do with the properties within the city, that we do things that maintains open space. We don't want to be downtown New York City, although downtown New York City has Central Park, which is beautiful open space within the center city. And we have an opportunity for that. And I think, allowing high-end recreational vehicle parks where people with big rigs could come in and visit the city, spend their money, and visit the city and actually do some of the things that we have to offer is a huge plus for the area. We're not looking to put in a mobile home park that's going to be, low rent housing. We're talking about a high-end resort destination where people that like to camp, like to drive around in their RVs, have a place to stop here in the city, and go to our businesses and whatnot. So I think this is a really positive thing for the city. Obviously, we got to be careful that we don't turn into one big RV park, and I don't think that's where we're at. Like I said, where we're at right now, we have a little cluster of A1 there. And to be honest with you, if that entire cluster within there turned into an RV park, let's say that it did grow and it combined those other two parcels, it's really an ideal place for that because it's surrounded by wooded area. It's surrounded by industrial commercial buildings. You wouldn't even know it was there driving by it. This actually puts something there that the public can go to, visitors can go to, and enjoy the outdoors. There's a huge lake there. There's other activities that have been talked about. By approving this, we allow for something nice to come to the city, as opposed to just another secluded lot that could house homeless if the owners weren't, if they just like we had several commercial properties right there on the east side of 19. I'm sorry, the west side of 19. I mean, you can walk back in those woods and there's tents. So this is an opportunity to actually have something nice developed, and at the end of the day, it is going to generate income. If the property changes hands and they're able to do something with this, you're talking immediately ad valorem tax surge, just the value of the property, and then you put all the development stuff in there, and the people want to come and visit. I mean, I see zero negative in something like this. So that's my take on it. Open up for any further discussion, and then I can put it to vote if you guys are finished.
This ordinance, all we're doing is saying that if it's okay for a recreational vehicle park subject to the requirements of the thing we haven't even looked at yet.
Right.
That's all we're voting on for this time. So we're just saying, yes, we can have an RV park someplace within Port Richey. Amen. End of conversation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Well, specifically in the A1 district.
Yes, within
Only
the A1
A1.
district. And again, my question before, can I make a commercial area A1? Yes, it has to be rezoned, but yes, I can. So within Port Richey, I can buy all of Candlelight and I can change it to an A1 and I can put an RV park there if I go to planning and zoning and I get it changed. That's all. This is just saying we can have an RV park within the city of Port Richey. That's all we're voting on.
That's correct.
The details is in the next one.
Yeah.
So I want to say I have nothing against the RV park. So for the record out there, but here's the thing, let's do this right. This city historically has made so many freaking errors over years and years and years, and we're still paying for it because of the sloppy things that were done up here. I just can't understand. Here we're changing the ordinance. What we're doing, we're adding number 8 here, recreational vehicles subject to requirement of section 127-58, and is not subject to D through J, which is the majority of the ordinance. So I don't understand why we're adding something that doesn't apply to the rest of the ordinance. I just don't understand. If we are going to do this right, and something I've never heard of, an RV PUD, if there's something out there that allows it to, let's do our homework and get this done right. But right now, we're adding one section here, 8, and then beyond that, it doesn't apply. It doesn't make any sense here. It doesn't make any sense. So why are we doing this? It just doesn't make sense.
The detail in here, the setbacks, the minimum yard requirements, building height, we can put in the next one, right?
Yeah, and that's,
And we put, and some of that is in there.
so the reason it, correct me if I'm wrong, the reason it says D and J of this section does not apply is because D through J talks about minimum lot requirements, maximum building coverage, maximum building height. All that is covered within the PUD. So the PUD supersedes what's here anyway. So it's basically saying ignore these items in this particular zoning because we've got special requirements
For that,
with that PUD.
for the recreational vehicle.
That's correct.
Part. So these, the D through J is addressed subsequently.
Yes, so very specifically.
So why haven't we looked at a RV PUD that was earlier mentioned?
We're doing that
It's
next.
the next ordinance.
That's the next ordinance.
And that's specifically for the
PUD.
For the
RV.
an RV
Yeah.
PUD.
Correct.
I mean, theoretically, Tom, we can say okay for this and then say no to everything else. I mean, you have to go through the details, but you're not saying yes to a specific piece of property. You're just saying, yes, we can have RV parks in Port Richey.
I think what it would do for the city, like you were saying with ad valorem and taxes, I think that for me, that supersedes that's the biggest point out of the discussion for me. Like, I think that bringing more tourism into the city is the way to do that. And this property would give us that, a step in the right direction, right? So
I just like the idea of having a better understanding of all of this. To me, I'm still, again, first time I saw a picture was up here of what the land we're talking about. I just wish there was more detail so we could, me personally, I could have a better understanding of all this.
Well, that's the purpose of the discussion. Obviously, if there's questions you have, feel free to, I mean, we've got the attorney here, we've got Matt. I mean, we can answer those questions.
So if I could,
Absolutely.
it may be a good thing to maybe schedule a meeting, just table this for tonight, this one and the PUD. Let's have a meeting where we can discuss all this. We can have the maps to show, where the zoning is and all that. So it's clear, because again, we recognize that this is a significant change to the code. That's why, we've talked about it, previous meetings, we supplied the proposed changes for the PUD, but, we really haven't had a chance to kind of go through line by line with everyone. So I would suggest that maybe we schedule a meeting to go over not only this one, but also the PUD.
That way all the
I
questions-
like that idea, to have a better understanding as opposed to dragging this out for.
We got a motion second on the table. So
You need a motion to table that.
The maker of the motion can withdraw the motion
yeah, so,
and ask and table the conversation.
or we can put it to vote. So
Who made the
withdraw the motion and we put it to vote.
Did you make the motion?
I mean,
Okay.
I would like to vote on it. So,
Fair enough. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
aye.
Opposed? Nay. Motion carries. Okay, next up. Next up is item number 6, first reading of ordinance number 24-696, amending section 127-58 of Article 3, Chapter 127, City of Port Richey Code of Ordinance to allow for recreational vehicle parks in a planned unit development zoning district. I'll pass up to Mr. Cobb for introduction.
So, council may remember, we had provided a draft of this particular change to the PUD districts to allow for RV parks. Again, since you allowed it now for A1, our thought was that we really wanted to have a set of requirements that are very specific to this type of development, because it is a little bit unique compared to other types of developments that could happen within a PUD. So the attached amendment takes into consideration the discussions that council had when we presented the draft. It also takes into any of the discussions that we had with planning and zoning at the last meeting. Although there was some discussion on it, I don't believe there was any recommendations to make any changes to the code. As requested by City Council, I reached out to the City of Crystal River to discuss their experiences with a similar code construct. I spoke with the Growth Management Director, Jeanette Collins. Mrs. Collins indicated the PUD approach has only successfully been used once in Crystal River by a KOA development. Because of the infrequent use, she couldn't identify any changes she believes should be made. I asked about the lack of the time frame in Crystal River's code related to how long an RV could stay. Ms. Collins stated they wrestled with putting a time frame, i.e. 90 days up to 180 days to stay, but decided just to define the vehicle as a transient guest lodging. This was done because it is defined within the Florida state statutes being in place for no longer than 6 months. Further, this language is found within the health code, which means is enforceable by the county health department. And this is actually very similar to what Ken heard from us. We struggled as well. Should it be 90 days, 120 days, 180 days? We didn't know about the understanding of the transient guest lodging, which makes a lot of sense because, not only would we be enforcing that, but also Pasco County Health Department would be enforcing it. So we'd be able to team up with them to bring this development into compliance if they were out of that. We also spoke about the maximum density requirement in Crystal River's code. Much like our staff, they struggled with placing a number on this requirement. However, after much thought, they decided to rely on their existing requirements within the PUD code of 8 per acre. So that explained the question, why did they go 8? That's what we put in there as well. Our PUD code allows up to 16 per acre, so that could be a reasonable change if council wanted to make that. But it could be 8, could be 16, could be 30. I mean, it really ultimately is up to City Council on how to make that change. We did point that out to planning and zoning, but there really was very little comment on that to make a change. Finally, we discussed the setback requirements for the waterfront. Jurisdictional wetlands. This language was consistent with other sections of their code that address concerns about water quality and the impact of development on waters within their city. Again, we kind of went with that based upon the thought that that setback would help provide for a better water quality in the body, reduce any damages that may come from redevelopment or the use of the land by the RV units there.
Yeah, go ahead, read.
Ordinance number 24-696, an ordinance of the City of Port Richey, Florida, amending section 127-58 of Article 3, Chapter 127 of the City of Port Richey Code of Ordinances to update a code section cited therein and to allow for recreational vehicle parks in a planned unit development zoning district, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date. And I now see that these also do not have underlines, so I was going to take you through real quick and let you know what should be underlined, so you know what changes were made. So this section 127-58 is your current planned unit development zoning district in your code. The first change is on subsection D, accessory uses. That simply changed the section number. That was one of those strange numbers we talked about in the last ordinance. It used to say 22-127, so we've just changed it to be the correct code provision of 127-92. your next change is section M. All of section M is new. That is the RV park PUD information. And then subsection N used to be M, if that makes sense. So now it's the new N is the old M. So we just changed the letter from M to N. And then in subsection 1, 4 lines from the bottom, it says the applicant's initial concepts. If you see that, that used to say his. We just changed it for gender neutrality. And then at the bottom of that page, towards the bottom of the page of the number 3 says to bind all successors in title. That the N in that section used to be M. And I know that's a lot, so I'm happy to go through it again if I need to. But
Well, so most of the
Yeah.
thing that matters.
the big
item
thing is M. The big thing is the new M.
And so, just I'm gonna point out a couple things. There seems to be a lot of spacing.
I noticed that.
I don't know why that is. So actually, if we can clean that up. I'm not sure why I did that, but it's throughout the document. And I brought this up last time we discussed this. I also had a question about the limitation of 8 recreational vehicle spaces per gross acre. It's my understanding 10 to 15 is kind of the norm. So it's a little sparse. So, I mean, I would suggest that we change that to 10, the minimum of the norm. And also the other item that concerned me was the setbacks. Mostly the water setback of 25 foot. And again, this was pulled from Crystal River area where they have flowing water. This particular one it's just a lake that doesn't really rise and fall. So you really don't have the issue of flooding around there. Do we really want to restrict that to 25 foot? Maybe 15 feet makes more sense. The other setback I thought was maybe a little restrictive was the 10 foot for the back end space and pull through space on the front side. Just experience when I go to RV parks and you're driving down through the roads or whatever, you don't necessarily need 10 foot. It'd be like on your driveway at home. If you go pull your driveway, you can park all the way out to the road as long as you're not in the road. Why do we require 10 foot in an RV park? Especially when you're talking about a very long, possibly an RV with a tow vehicle. It's just you're making them have an extra 10 foot in front of all that. So that seems to me that maybe reduce that to 5 foot at the most. The other item was number 8, which says, unless otherwise indicated on an approved PUD master plan, tent camping shall be limited to 1 campsite per designated recreational vehicle space and shall not be allowed in any other designated area. When I think about tents, right, an RV site could be fairly large, the way it's going to be designed. Do we want to restrict it to 1? I mean, I could see 2 tents in one of those, so maybe 2 is a better number for there, just to provide more space for the activity. Like I said, tents are not don't take a lot of space, and you're not really gonna have a whole lot more people. So it probably makes sense to not limit that to 1 campsite, but not a huge issue. I just thought maybe that might be a little restrictive. Another item D, internal roadway circulations. One, there was extra on number 2. There was extra period there, parking. But it says parking spaces for ancillary uses associated with the recreational vehicle park shall meet the minimum standards for parking space requirements at LDC. Again, when you go to a recreational vehicle park, you have the main pull in for your tow vehicle, and that a lot of times you'll have maybe family that drive along with you. How restrictive of parking to park that extra vehicle in there? Do we really need to have an actual parking space? And again, I don't know what the restrictions are to meet the minimum standards, but normally when you go to a campground, you just park in the grass. So for visitors, so I don't know if we need to maybe make that a little less restrictive. Something to talk about. Then further down within item 3, it says that the interior roadway consists of concrete, asphalt, or crushed limestone Obviously, that doesn't include my knowledge, like millings, like recycled asphalt. When I think about the interior roads of RV park, obviously, I would think it would be better not to have concrete throughout that and have full, roads, because you want to maintain the feel that you're out in nature or whatever. You really wouldn't want to put all that concrete stuff. And that's very expensive to develop at that point too. So I don't know if we want to loosen up our what we can have for roads and include some more materials. For gravel, for instance, you couldn't use gravel in this case. It had to be specifically these three. So that was one thing I pointed out. And another one under F, utilities and refuse disposal, item number 2. Says electricity shall be provided to each recreational and vehicle space, vehicle parking pad, all electrical utility lines in the park shall be underground. That would be great, but again, if you're going to be catering to tent campers as well, do you really want to have to run electric to all your sites? Obviously, if it's going to be a site with full hookups, that's the case. But normally, you have sites that aren't full hookups, where you camp out or whatever. You don't need electricity. So, do we really need to have? Do we want to require every single site to have electricity?
For RV.
Well, because in order to tent camp, it's
vehicle space.
Right, but you can't have tents unless you have one per vehicle space. Or as you're saying in that plan, you can have tents in a separate portion. Okay.
Yeah.
Then the question is also, there may be, because sometimes they have generators and stuff that they can run. They don't necessarily need full hookups. So basically, any RV space, we're going to require them to have electricity, which may be fine.
That's what that would require, yes.
Yeah, so which may be fine, but again, it's obviously a lot more infrastructure going in, more load. Maybe you don't need that, so that's something to consider. I think that's all the things that I saw. Let me look further here. Yeah, those are the only points that I had. So open up for discussion.
This is where I think a separate meeting to go over these specifically to make sure that we're all on the same page is appropriate. Some things I agree with you, some things I think need to be changed, one way or the other. I don't agree with it as written, and I think to be in a meeting so detailed is to be detailed, because we want to do it right. We want to do it right the first time. So, and we're missing Dave. I'm sure he has ideas as well. So this, I would be more likely to say, let's have it, whether it be a workshop, whatever you want to call it, to go over this line by item, and just go through it, make sure we talk about it, discuss it, do what's best for Port Richey, and move forward.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That we could, I don't know if we want to table to another council meeting. I think we need to dedicate some meeting.
Yeah, that's why I said workshop or whatever you choose.
I think what's been said earlier and what's been proposed now, I think a workshop is ideal because it allows this conversation, public can be here, give their input. It's all going to be about, you can add other things, I guess, to the workshop if you want, but the purpose is to sit down and just have a heart to heart and talk about each line of this and get it done.
Yeah.
And then you'll have to come back should we decide to do that.
Yes.
I agree with that. At the same time, we need our building official to be present as well as the fire department for first responders.
And keep in mind too that they've looked at this, right?
Yeah, but if we're gonna be looking at changing it.
I don't know if fire has reviewed that or not.
We review the original plan. Our biggest issue is we're just making sure apparatus can access and get around roadways. That's why some of the.
But my concern is that the recommendations we make we decide to make, that it's approved. I mean, if we're going to put saying it as roads, that's the last thing that the fire department or the police department want to ride on. So whatever we do, they are in agreement with it.
I agree. I mean, they need to be, let's fix it the first time. Let's not have 12 meetings about this.
That's why I went through and pointed these things out.
Like one of the things you said, changing the road from this to this. And like Tom said, maybe it would not be appropriate for the fire truck. That's not my answer. That's theirs. So I think in the detail of, the devil's in the detail, let's look at the detail, have the people, so we don't have to keep going back and forth.
Yes.
Give them, yes, it's good, or no, that won't work for us the first time. Do it right the first time.
No, totally agree.
I agree.
I agree too.
So we need a motion to table, a motion to add the workshop or?
Do the motion,
Look
do
for
the workshop first.
Yeah, look
and then-
for a motion to table this.
Motion to table, so we can have a workshop going forward.
Motion second for discussion. I do have one signed up. Todd, speaking on this. Any comments? Might as well get another 3 minutes, right?
Well, I just got attacked personally back there, so I did want to clear up some things. It's very important that you all do it because contrary to what he said, you do have residential just to the north of that area on Hardy Street, I believe it is. So you do have residential units. You are affecting residents of the city. I know he doesn't like to talk about that, but that is there. And also, you know, I've only been in business of development for 25 years, so what do I know about it? But the RV park will bring in additional revenue in sales taxes. That mostly goes to the county. So if you're doing this as a money issue, which really isn't, because the ad valorem improvements of the electrical and everything for an RV park really isn't all that great over a small residential development or something like that. So if you're doing it for having an RV park and having an amenity to the city, that's fine. But most of what Matt said was not accurate. So thank you.
Thanks, Todd. Anyone else like to speak? Todd? Just try not to attack each other. Just
8301 Congress Street. Mr. McClary don't know a thing about me. I'm not boasting and bragging. But if he wants to, I can compare my financials to his financials. We'll see who knows more about development. My biggest thing of it is this is over off of Congress Street. No one sees this place from off the street. And then he wants to attack me about what's going on. I'm actually an asset to this community, what I've done for this community and cleaned the property up. On top of it, every single property around me is, I'd love to take any single one of you council members and take you for a ride and show you the filth, the dirt, and the back streets. I took the mayor down one of the back streets and I showed him, did it or did it not look like a county dump? So the thing of it is I took a property that looked like a county dump and made a country club out of it, is what I did. So the thing of it is I wanted to share this with the city and with the revenue. And then as far as what Mr. McClary makes the comment of revenue, he doesn't know where the revenue is going to come from, where the revenue goes to or what have you. It's just blah, 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 and more negativity. So what the deal of it is that's been the problem with the city. It's been so much negativity. That's what it comes is. All I'm trying to do is alleviate your all tax dollars. You want to do projects? We need more tax dollars. So the bottom line of it is the taxes go up when the property's sold as the improvements of the buyers that buy the property comes in, it's reassessed, the value of the property goes up. Doesn't take rocket science to figure that out. So the thing of it is that's kind of like where it is. The people that want the property, they're the right fit for the property, they'll be an asset to the community. I don't see where the negativity is. We wanted to put floating cabins and tree houses there to make it a destination for the city of Port Richey and put Port Richey on the map to where they've got something more than just come to bars. That's what this is all about. So it's just like, what does the city gain by the property just sitting there being stagnant and doing nothing and surrounded? As far as he makes the comment about the houses on the other street, he doesn't know what he saw. There's an apartment building over there. Go down there and see what the houses look like on that street. Go see the homeless that we go run out of the street. You know what I do? I don't bother the police department. They've got enough to do. I go and run the homeless out of there, and I do it so the people don't. You ever been trying to attack by needles and stuff? No one in here knows what I go through just to keep that property the way it is. The new owners, they want to put a high-end fence around it and really make it a state-of-the-art facility. So the bottom line of it is, I don't see the negativity, and it's just like. And if I talk with anger, please, it's not that. I've just been dealing with this for over 3 years to even get it in front of you. The previous city manager didn't want to hear it. The same nonsense as I just heard from Mr. McClary. So it is what it is. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Matt. Anyone else like to speak? Seeing that, I got a motion to table on the, put the vote, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now, do we want to set a workshop date, or you want to check that out, or? You guys got an idea of when you might be free to do that? It would be nice to try to get it done before the next meeting, so that we can get this back on the agenda.
Do it at Meet Your Neighbor and over beer.
Just trying to make it interesting.
Fix that problem.
Do we have anything next Tuesday?
We have a second session of goal setting.
It's on Monday.
I'm not available. I assume you won't be here for that, but if you don't, I'm fine, but I recommend I be here for that one. I cannot do Monday.
I can't do Wednesday. I can't do this Thursday. I do next Thursday.
How about you, Tom?
Next week I can't do it. I'm not here.
Can we do Wednesdays?
I can't do Wednesday.
How about this Friday?
Friday. Friday?
I only can do AM if it's possible.
Friday's not really bad.
I only can do AM on Friday, so give up your phone.
AM.
Oh, yeah, when is Nancy available? You tell us your availability.
And I'm wondering now is notice requirements.
I mentioned Dave too. I think he'll be. See when he's coming back. I want to say he'll be back.
Later this weekend, he said he would be back before the end of qualifying. And that ends on Tuesday.
Oh, so he's probably gonna be here Friday anyway.
So would you consider pushing the goal setting back from the 20th to the 5th of March?
I'm okay with that. I'm good with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we reschedule the goal setting. We'll instead we'll do the workshop for
If
this.
I'm free
the
on
city attorney's
at
available.
in the evening, same or normal time.
What date?
6.
It's coming Tuesday.
So 2:20 at 6 p.m.
Say we had the goal setting, so we're just gonna swap it.
Right.
So we'll do this instead.
When is the goal setting on?
So we're talking the 27th or the.
The 27th would be a regular meeting. So we would under
20th.
the 20th is when we would do
Do this.
the work session. The 27th is a regular meeting,
Right.
and I propose that we bump the goal setting from the 20th to the 5th.
6 o'clock?
And so the goal would be we have the workshop on the 20th, and hopefully if that goes well. We can keep the first reading of this, table it, and bring it back on 27th meeting. Correct? That sounds good to me.
I'm good with that.
Good. Perfect. Linda, good?
Yes, sir.
Okay, moving on to item number 7. First reading of ordinance number 24-697, amending chapter 109, article 3, division 5, section 109-424 of the City of Port Richey Code of Ordinance to clarify when temporary placement of recreation vehicles is allowed. I'll pass it to Mr. Cobb for introduction.
Not to speak for the city attorney, but this all began as she was reviewing for the A1 district RV.
And actually, it's not completely correct. I'll correct you later.
Anyhow, what this ordinance would do, amendment would clarify when recreational vehicles as well as park trailers can be placed temporarily in flood hazard areas. New language states that placement can occur after the city declares a local state of emergency pursuant to the city's code of ordinances. Further, this placement must be compliant with Federal Emergency Management Agency guidelines.
Pass it for your reading.
Thank you. Ordinance number 24697, an ordinance of the city of Port Richey, Florida, amending chapter 109, article 3, division 5, section 109-424 of the city of Port Richey Code of Ordinances to clarify when temporary placement is allowed, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date. This was actually a provision, and Mr. Poplar wasn't here for this. Because you hadn't started yet, that P&Z did look at. This was one of the ones that they looked at the request of staff, because we realized there appeared to be some inconsistencies with how long RVs could be parked within the city. Some provisions say 120 days, this one said 180 days. The purpose of this is about flood hazard and storming, and when there's a storm, and people being able to park the RV a little bit longer. So planning and zoning wanted just to clarify that this provision for the 180 is specific to when a state of emergency has been declared by the city, and it has to follow the guidelines from FEMA. The 120-day provisions at other places in the code have nothing to do with storms. It's just that every average day using and parking of RVs within your city. That's where it came from. So you guys understand that. And it should be underlined, and it's not, so I will tell you what the new language is when you're ready.
You good thing Mr. Columbo was here. You'd be in a lot of trouble.
He would be kicking me right
Be in a
now.
lot of
I don't know what happened. I do apologize.
So this has nothing to do with the previous.
No.
This is independent.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't understand
Yes.
that. Okay.
So, and that's my fault for not making sure Mr. Cobbler understood that. This conversation happened a while ago with P&Z, and building was there, and that discussion was had to make this clarification. We just didn't get to it, and then the RV A1 came up, and it kind of just all kind of goes together, even though this doesn't really go together. Thought we'd bring it all at the same time.
So the 180 days, let's make believe we say 7 days for the RV. That's not going to happen. I'm just making believe. Don't get upset. So whatever we say here this is not affected by that.
This will be.
We can't say, well, this says 180 days, so this needs to be 180. Does that have to be congruent?
The one in front of you, the 109-424, will only take effect if you declare a state of emergency per your code provisions.
Thank you.
And then it's up to the building to somehow monitor it, but that's a different conversation. For a different day. So the new language, I'll just read it, the end of line 1 going to line 2. After the city declares a local state of emergency pursuant to the city's code of ordinances, that is new. And then it says, the shall was already there, be compliant with FEMA guidelines, which at this time require the recreational vehicles and park trailers too. Now, 1 and 2 were already there. Those are still FEMA guidelines. They haven't changed. And then we added, in the event FEMA adopts new guidelines modifying the guidelines set forth within this code, any newly adopted FEMA guidelines supersede the guidelines contained within this code. And that, of course, was added if they change the code, the provision, the FEMA guidelines tomorrow, we can't catch up that quickly. So this would say, forget what our code says, you need to follow FEMA.
Follow FEMA.
Yeah.
The one question I had is on number 1, be on the site for fewer than 180 consecutive days, or. Now, number 2, be fully licensed and ready for highway use. I guess I was reading that as the RV in relation to the RV parking, so that's why I was confused with that. I don't understand this.
Any questions about 1 or 2 might be able to help you with? It's the FEMA guidelines. I don't know anything about RVs.
Do you know do you see what I'm talking about, Mike? It's under temporary placement number 2.
What page are you on?
8-2.
All right, what's your question?
It's be fully licensed and ready for highway use, which means the recreational vehicle or park. So this means, can you have non-highway ready vehicles on this? I'm confused as, what is this allowing?
Basically, the RV can be sitting on the property and either has to be up on jacks, but it has to be fully licensed you could drop it off the jacks, put it right on the road and drive right down the road legally, so PD can't pick them up.
Just tell you can have an RV inside your house. It's unlicensed right now, not be able to drive.
Okay. Because it says or, Okay, all right, that's fine. Scott, thank you.
There was one aspect that, I don't know if it just a thought here, since we're making a change to this. And I think we're gonna see a lot more of this in the future. Obviously, people are raising their homes due to the FEMA stuff. And I said, it takes some time, you're displaced for a while they actually raise your house and do that. Do we want to consider opening this up to allow for that if you're doing a FEMA grant mitigation, that you can do this as well, as opposed to not be, this specifically states a state of emergency. But in those cases, it's part of the process to mitigate this. Maybe we open it up to that as well. People can live in their RV, same rules, but during the renovation.
I think you're opening up a can of worms. What happens if construction gets delayed and you have to sit here and look at construction and a trailer sitting in the front yard? I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah, well, it's same thing on a depending on how bad the flood is, you could have same.
Well, that's a state of emergency. This is not a state of emergency. You're talking about.
Well, you're talking about various, I'm talking about 20, 30 one-on-ones. You're talking about an isolated case. I thought I'd bring it up just because, and the reason I do is, I think there's other places in the code that, and I think maybe you've had some conversations with Faraz that does the house raising stuff. There's things that, as they're mitigating those, that with setbacks and stuff like that, like give specifics, but basically our code is very restrictive to allow to mitigate those existing homes. And so it might be prudent for us to take a look at and be more mitigation friendly, if you would. And that was kind of where the suggestion came from. But obviously there's codes and stuff that we probably should make an exception for on those. At least give you a specific example. So when they raise a home, the utilities go up the meter. Well, Duke Energy has a rule that they have to be eye level or something. And so if you raise it up a story, you have to have some access, little stoop or whatever to get up to there. And so if they're already on their 5 foot setback, you can't put anything else in there. So, and you obviously can't move the utilities to the other side of the house. So that would be a case where, for the sake of mitigation, we would allow that, and that's a variance process obviously, but to allow that to happen, to put that stoop in so that they could leave the utilities there, they raise them up, and then Duke would have their access to be able to put that meter, because they only put the meter in place if they can't get to it, it's not within their spec or whatever. That's just an example.
I understand.
And that's why, so I bring it up in case like this. Obviously, you're displaced. I don't know what the normal average time frame you got a house, but I see a couple of 5, 6 months or whatever where they're.
I don't want to look at a trailer and construction for 5 or 6 months.
Yeah. Well,
and neither do the 14 other people that live around that.
Well, the goal is to obviously help with the mitigation process, and so just thought.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. Well, personally, I don't think that's a good idea. I would like to look at that personally.
Any further discussion? And or motion.
So clarification of this. Again, state of emergency has to be declared, and they have up to 180 days to be on the site. But then on number 2, it goes to or. What's the time frame on number 2?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I said and. That should be and instead of or. I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the way I'm reading this, if you end up put it on jacks or something, you could stay there.
I didn't read my
forever.
own notes. You're right, Tom. I wrote that down. That's where I wrote that.
I mean, with the or, should it be and?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I agree.
Yeah, because one says time frame and the other is what it is. It's two different things. It's not a choice. I wrote that. Sorry. Thank you.
About the wheels or Jackie says that's
No, under the number 1 on page 82, be on the site fewer than 180 days and be fully licensed, ready for highway use. It should be and, not or.
Yeah, good call out.
Okay, your code currently has or.
Okay.
Just so you know that, and I'm pretty sure that is verbatim what FEMA requires, but I'm trying to find the reference, just so I can advise you.
Yeah, so basically that says if you're on the site for less than 180 days, it doesn't matter what 2 says.
Say that again?
So, but the way it's currently written would say, as long as you're 180 days or less, it doesn't really matter what 2 says because it's or. So if you're on the site for fewer than 180 consecutive days, you technically, by the way this reads, you wouldn't need wheels, jacking system, none of that stuff matters because.
What do you need?
No, I'm saying you're right. If you put or in there, you can leave 2 off. As long as you comply with 1, you comply. But we want to make sure you comply with 1 and 2, so you need to be and. So I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, because if a storm comes, you need to be able to move that thing.
Right. Yeah. And the way it is,
Right.
you wouldn't have to as long as you were under 180 days.
Little words make such a big difference.
The FEMA guidelines is or. A recreational vehicle placed on a site in a special flood hazard area must meet the elevation and anchoring requirements for manufactured homes unless it, 1, is on a site for fewer than 180 consecutive days or is fully licensed and ready for highway use, and then explains what ready for highway use is, which is that weird language you asked about.
And I think the way FEMA, reason they did that is you can actually put a little temporary construction trailer that you can live in that isn't road ready and all that on your site.
I say change it to end.
Can we do that? We can be more restrictive.
Right? Wait, I'll put that back.
Well, I somewhat agree with that, but I also, in the case of an emergency, when people's homes have been devastated or whatever, do we really want to require them to have a fully functional RV, or is a trailer for them to stay until they get things back to normal acceptable? To my mind, we want to be as accommodating as possible in cases like this. So that being said, I don't know if I would change that.
Well, the worst case scenario, they have a problem, they're in a trailer, now a hurricane comes, that trailer is moving.
Well,
that
sure.
trailer is going to be going through your neighbor's house.
Well, they would have a car they could leave too. So, I mean, this is just more temporary housing while their place is being fixed.
I think that's being a little overdramatic. But a recreational vehicle, for FEMA guidelines, we had 3 hurricanes come through the state, one right after the other a couple years ago, going right across the state. It happens. Doesn't happen frequently, but it does happen.
Right. Well, if you're in a position where your house has been destroyed and you're trying to get it fixed up and you're living there, you know that's more important than worrying about the next hurricane that could possibly come through, which probably won't happen, but could. But again, you can always evacuate, and you would evacuate just like it was a regular house. It's just this gives them the ability to put something there to continue living. So I don't know we want to be that restrictive there, because this is specific state of emergency type things where your house is destroyed. So why don't we be so worried about what you're actually living in, whether it's on wheels?
In order to get there, they have to have a license, has to have wheels, has to have everything delivered to get there. So what's the difference? Let's keep it legal, and this way, when their time's up, they have to move it.
I will add too, if currently the way this is written, per the intent from what was discussed at planning and zoning, is to follow FEMA guidelines. If you change one word, you've changed what FEMA's done. So this whole right now, the way it's written, we're saying you shall be compliant with FEMA guidelines, which now are 1 and 2, and shall FEMA adopt any guidelines, whatever FEMA adopts, that's what we're going to abide by. Changing one word makes it not, you're saying follow FEMA, but we're giving you a different conditions than FEMA. So you either, I don't know that we, and I have to defer to Mike, I don't know that we cannot follow FEMA. Yeah, I don't know the answer to, I don't know if we can ignore them is my,
We can follow FEMA's guidelines, but we can also make it more stringent.
Yes.
So you can put it in there that, follow FEMA's guidelines as well as, and then add the following. You can do it that way. As long as it's more stringent, you just can't take away from it.
So we'd have to, I guess the point is we'd have to reword it. We'd have to change and figure out how to reword that we aren't ignoring FEMA, but we want to make this and not a word.
Yeah. So I would ask the question, why do we want to be more restrictive than FEMA? And I think I know the answer to that.
So my questions, have we really looked at the FEMA guidelines? Is this a clerical error that
I just looked, and FEMA has or.
They do have or.
I think that's specific because otherwise you're required to have basically a full-fledged travel RV. I mean, I believe Red Cross and all that, they'll bring you can get a thing dropped off, at, a mobile home, if you will, dropped off while you're going through the process to fix your home.
Not everybody has the funds for.
Right. To go out and buy an RV to live in for a while or rent it or whatever. I think it's purposeful. So I would not be in favor of changing that.
This is the FEMA guidelines, so be it,
Yeah.
follow it.
But I get the point. You don't want to look at trailers, but if we have an event, I mean, you gotta look at trailers because it's destroyed. I mean, we're going to be we have other things to worry about.
I didn't say that.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. So that's why I get the point here is we don't want to look at trailers, right?
No, that was a different conversation. That had nothing to do with FEMA with this. You were talking about when in the sun is shining and you want to raise a house and put that has nothing, right?
No,
exactly.
that's
Okay.
different. I'll talk about
So
this.
my comment had to do with that. Does not have to do with
Okay.
this.
Yeah, no,
This is a separate entity. This is an emergency situation. This I agree with.
Okay.
I agree with having trailers on the property when you're in an emergency situation. That had nothing.
Okay.
My comment had nothing
I
to
was
do with
speaking-
a
I understand.
FEMA,
Yeah.
emergency.
Yeah, don't muddy the water with that. I was just thinking,
Yeah.
do we want to expand this to add
No.
something like that? But
No.
that's how it is. So this is an emergency situation. We're good with
Yes,
you.
that I do.
Okay.
Motion to approve the first reading of ordinance number 24-697, amending section 109-424 of Article 3 of Chapter 109, Division 5 of the City of Port Richey Code to clarify when temporary placement of recreational vehicles will be allowed.
That was a great motion, by the way, Tom. The motion second for discussion. Anyone from the public like to speak? Seeing no hands, I'll put the vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is item number 8, bid rejection for comprehensive safety action plan. I'll pass that to Mr. Copper for introduction.
The city was awarded the Florida Department of Transportation Safe Streets for All grant for the development of a comprehensive safety action plan. The invitation to bid was posted on October 8th, 2023, and the bid opening was on November 8th, 2023. After the bid opening, the city received a letter from an attorney representing the American Council of Engineering Companies of Florida that the ITB for this item was a violation of state statute 287005. The Consultants Competitive Negotiation Act, CCNA. After discussions with staff and city attorneys, recommended the city council reject the current bids. Since there was a recorded bid opening, staff will then rebid the CASB's request for qualifications as per the recommendations in the letter submitted to the city.
For motion or discussion?
Motion to reject the bid for the comprehensive safety action plan.
Second. Motion second. No discussion? Anyone from the public like to speak? No hands, put the vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, item number 9, Pasco County Law Enforcement Mutual Aid Agreement. I'll pass it to Mr. Copper for introduction.
This item was initially approved at the October 10, 2023 meeting by council and signed and returned shortly thereafter to the sheriff's office. The city became aware in November that the sheriff was not going to sign the agreement as written. After having discussions with the sheriff, I was able to put together an understanding between the sheriff and the city, which he indicated he would sign. The necessary change was to insert the city manager in place.
Motion or discussion?
Discussion. I don't understand this at all. If you take a look at everyone else back here, if you go to all the signatures of the various cities and so forth, everybody's on there is a police chief, except for the city of Port Richey. I don't understand why is our police chief being removed.
That's a good question.
So I can add a little bit here. There's unfortunately, for reasons out there, that there is a broken relationship between the sheriff and our police chief. And so when we originally signed this agreement back in October, I had got word that the sheriff was not going to sign this agreement. I'd actually talked to him back at a meeting back behind the fence when they had a Meet the Mayor event back there. The sheriff actually came in and spoke, and so I went aside with him and Harrington, and they basically said that they were not going to sign the agreement in its current state. And so I went to work to see what we could do to remedy that. Myself and Matt was brand new at the time. They were starting in November. Me and Matt met with the sheriff, and he felt comfortable with moving forward. He would agree to sign the memorandum of understanding between the city and the sheriff's office, as long as Matt's name was on it instead of the chief's. And so that started that process that I'll let you add further to that if you want. But Matt has obviously met with the sheriff since then, and this is the only way this agreement gets signed, is if city manager's name is on it instead of chief's.
So obviously, there's something deeper here. I mean, much deeper. The fact that, obviously, Mr. Mayor, you're not supporting the police chief, and whatever direction Mr. Coppola has.
No, let him finish. Go ahead, Tom.
I'm having problems why suddenly Port Richey is being singled out with nothing against Mr. Coppola. This mutual aid is for law enforcement. You've got to have the understanding as when you need, how you get it, when you make the request. Having that request come from Mr. Coppola, he hasn't had the training. So I think it's a little unfair to put it upon him, but I just don't understand why suddenly our police chief is no longer in good graces with the sheriff. I mean, if there's a problem, maybe the problem's with the sheriff. I don't know. But I'm having difficulties to digest this. I'm really having a terrible time with this.
Before I turn over you, if I could. So let me make this perfectly clear. I support the police chief, 100%. I've made that known to the city manager, but unfortunately, there has been a relationship broken between police chief and Sheriff Naco. That is the reality. There's reasons behind that. Is there faults within our police chief? Is there faults within Sheriff Naco? Probably both sides. There's two sides to every story, right? But I'm here to tell you, in refute your accusation, I do support the police chief. And if anything, I have went to bat to make sure that whatever problems that there are get rectified. And I further state that this is the only way that the sheriff is willing to sign an agreement with our city. And I also want to point out it is extremely important that we have this agreement in place. And so I don't care whose name's on it. Whatever we need to do to get this agreement in place, it's important that we have it. And so that being said, this was the methodology to be able to bridge that gap for now. I'll also go on to say that I'm extremely disappointed in the situation that we're in. I don't necessarily know how we got here, but we're here. And the way I look at it is we need to go forth with what we have here today to get this agreement in place. And then from this point on, we do whatever we can to repair that relationship starting today. That's my take on it. But to answer your question, I do support the police chief.
Can I ask for input from Chief Robinson? Is that appropriate?
Did you want to say something first? Let me
Could I just
interject
real quick? So I met very recently with the sheriff because I shared your concern. I'm city manager, had police departments, but I don't put myself in the inner workings of the police department. I make sure they do what they're supposed to do. I make sure they service the residents in a way that you as council want them to service our residents. But knowing when to make a call for whatever the situation allows, not up to me. It's up to that man there. And, I think I've had many discussions trying to understand the basis for where we're at. I can't tell you one way or another what that is. I've heard both sides. I sat there, and in the end, from my standpoint, what we have to do is we have to make sure that our residents and the law enforcement, both sheriff and police, are served to the best possible way. And this agreement does that. I mean, it provides, contrary to what I may have been told, this is an officer safety issue and a resident safety issue. And, I can't just let it keep going and not be signed. When I spoke to the sheriff, I said, what is it going to take for you to sign this? This is what he said. I said, okay, we'll figure out how to make it work. In meeting with him recently, I said, I can't be in the middle. It just is not going to work that way. I mean, it's just, again, there's too many things that happen that only the police chief is going to be able to direct. His response to this is, under this guise, the chief will be that person that still makes all those calls. He'll be doing it with the captains that, are in the districts, 1 and 3, the service. So he's there in that, fulfilling that role that we talked about. Could there be something from a high level that, the sheriff, says we need to do this, that I may be involved with? Possibly, but it'll be in consultation with the chief of police at all times. So I understand what you're saying. I agree with it. The practical matter, as the mayor said, is that this does not get signed any other way.
Okay, just, here's the thing, mutual aid is very, very important. We have it with the fire department. We do need it for the police department. I have no problem with that. But obviously, there's something that broke here, and I think Mr. Koppler, directing you, we need to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm asking. So going forward, motion to approve the Pasco County Law Enforcement Mutual Aid Agreement revised.
Before I entertain that motion, you had a comment?
I don't agree. I think if we can't support our chief of police, I think we've got a major problem. We have adults here that have lives at stake. Not only officers' lives, as what something happened last night, that one of our officers got injured, but residents. This is a piece of paper. If sheriff does not want to sign a piece of paper, how does that say that he's going to work with our chief of police if a severe emergency happens and one of our agencies needs the other? But he won't sign a piece of paper if our police chief doesn't, but he'll work with them. I have a real problem with that. Mutual aid is extremely important. I'll take note. I mean, prior law enforcement, I would like to hear from the chief if that's appropriate, if he's willing to say anything. I don't know if he is or not. But I'm not happy that this is being dictated by someone of who signs this, by someone who has no law enforcement experience. No offense, Mr. Koppler. This needs to be law enforcement to law enforcement.
Yes.
And I don't understand why we're letting that happen.
Did you want to comment, Chief?
You don't have to.
You don't have to if you don't want to.
I mean,
I would like to know.
But he doesn't have to.
Yeah. Just throwing that out there.
I'm going to leave my personal opinions out of this because I do have some.
Okay.
On the professional opinion, the MAA is first and foremost a officer safety and a citizen safety document. It's not just for the officers here in the city of Port Richey, but it's also for New Port Richey. It's also for Pasco deputies, and their safety is my priority. We don't work with Zephyr Hills or Dade City that often, but they do call us to assist them with events that they have and they need manpower. So in that capacity, we do work with those agencies on the other side of the county. And I'll just leave it there.
Any discussion? I'll entertain the motion.
I made a motion.
Have a motion? Have a second?
Motion seconded.
Have a motion second for discussion? Anyone from the public like comment? Danny, welcome.
My name's Danny Fields, and my address is 8114 Leo Kidd. I stand behind the chief. Why? Because it's his department and the sheriff has got their department. They work together as a team. You know, that's their logo. They say that they fight as one. Well, what it really comes down to is, like we said, if you can't sign a piece of paper for whatever grants and money and working together like that, because it comes down to finances. And so they want the big piece of the pie is the way I see it. I know Chris Narco, and we're in partnerships with him as well with the National Day of Prayer. And Leonard has been a chaplain with the Sheriff Department. So he asked me not to really get involved in it, but we're going, I'm going to bring this back to them, the church, and see if we could have some kind of meeting where this could be resolved openly, where the public could be involved and knowing what's really behind this. You asked what's behind this. That's what we want to know. We want the chief. He ain't trying to defend himself. He's just doing his job with excellence. And and I'm not just saying that because he's the chief, but because I know his character. I stand with him, and I'm not for the Sheriff Department on this issue because what they're doing is not right. And if anybody here can't see that, then I ask you to open your eyes and investigate and find out why. Not just because Matthew, he don't know this part of what's going on. They got him as a middleman and using him to just be able to get their agenda done. And that's the way I see it as a citizen, as a chaplain, and so I will not set back on this issue. Stand for what is right and what is noble and just, and I hope that you guys will investigate and make decisions and get to the bottom of this and stand with the one that is doing right. The Sheriff Department, they got their agendas and things they want to get done, and so sometimes they'll cut another one's reputation just to get their things done. But the chief has done nothing wrong here that I know of, and he's did everything by the book, and he's willing to work with them. And if they can't work with him, I'm going to say it because I ain't worried about the Sheriff Department. Shame on them, and I will tell Chris Narco that myself. Shame on them. So you have a nice evening and think about that.
Thanks, Dan. Anyone else like to speak? Kathy,
Todd, 8301 Congress Street. My take on this is, being that I am in police and I am a federal officer, I know what goes on behind the scenes. I know that signing that is important. The reason that's important is because prior to a lot of you being here, the corruption that was in this city was because we didn't have that backup. And when we got that backup, it started cleaning up. We started cleaning house, and we cleaned up, got a lot of this riffraff out of here, off of council, and made things better, moved the city forward. So with that being said, the problem is, and whatever their issues, I don't know this gentleman, it's, and I don't know, he may not want to get into his issues. Like he said, he's gonna keep personal things. And you start prying and digging, you might get in a can of worms you don't wanna know about. So at that part, it's kinda like, look, lay it well enough be, but the reason we signed that, we pay county tax, we pay for the sheriff, we pay for the police. We might as well use them. But I know when we first got here, we had an incident and we called out our city police and they couldn't do anything, they wouldn't do anything about it. So we went to the sheriff and said, hey, we got a prostitute in our driveway and our police can't do nothing about it because they didn't allow the sheriff in here to do anything. So we had to go over their heads to make things and change things in order to get stuff cleaned up. That's where that lies. I'm not judging anybody. Only God does that. I'm not saying anything horrible about anybody. I know the guidelines, and you want that in your back pocket. You do. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? See as I bring back. Before I put it to vote, I want to reiterate, I don't like this situation that we're in, but obviously it's very important that we have a memorandum of understanding with the sheriff and the other our neighboring cities for the safety of residents, safety officers. That's tantamount to me. I don't direct staff, so when I say this, it's strictly I just hope, Chief, whatever the issues that you guys have, that you try to work that out with the sheriff, and hopefully that at some point we can get this amended, put your name back on it. So if whatever you can do to help facilitate that, be an asset I'd have. So
I mean, the fact that Sheriff Noko is the one that directed him not to be on this. It's Sheriff Noko has a big part in this. And my no is not going to be against mutual aid. My no is against not having our police chief involved in this.
But the mutual aid is for the people. It doesn't matter what's going on between the police chief and the sheriff. That's their personal stuff. I was going to say another word, but that's their personal stuff.
I understand that.
And so we need to focus he made it very clear with what he said.
I understand that.
That it's for the people and that is his utmost concern. And so I think we need to listen to the police chief himself, and we need to approve this right away. And whatever issues they got, they need to deal with that themselves. Or not, if they don't want to. That's not up to us. But the mutual aid is important per Florida statutes. So.
Any comments? See no hands. Put a vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Okay, next up is item number 10, approval of paving city streets. I'll pass it to Mr. Copley for introduction.
So this is something I believe council's had discussions on in the past, but we are bringing forward the paving plan for the upcoming year. Several streets, including Ritchie Drive, Bay Boulevard, Holzner Street, November Drive, Carpenter Street, Wells Court, Candlelight Court, Lena Court, and Broadway Avenue will all be paved under this plan. Most streets have a remaining service life rating of 4, which means it's at the end. This program is a significant step to increase the city's overall RSL street average. $500,000 was set aside by the City Council in October. Still, after review, is a recommendation of staff to balance the purchase of this contract between ARPA and Penny for Pasco contingency funds. And so, originally, you had put aside $500,000 in ARPA funding. As we looked at the upcoming Cody River Landing project and how we were going to be utilizing some of that funding from, I think it was the escapes me now, but the impact fees, right? We felt that it was going to negatively impact our reserves for that. So what we're recommending is that we use more ARPA money towards that project and use Penny for Pasco to fund the $127,000 or up to $127,000 for this project. And I don't know if Sally, you want to get into any specifics right now or wait for the questions?
One call out just to clarify. So in the background summary here, the Deidre Circle was not mentioned, but down in the detail, Deidre Circle was mentioned. Is Deidre Circle included in this or not?
No, because, well, no, only Wells Court at the very end of Deidre. And I put that, and I've highlighted that section in the map as one of the maps to be done. The Deidre Circle that they mentioned in the quote, only because when he was mapping, when Ajax Paving was mapping it, it doesn't show Wells Court as the name. It just calls it Deidre Circle. But that is Wells Court, which is at the very end of Deidre. Not all of Deidre Circle will be done.
So Deidre comes in, and I think there might be some confusion on what's Deidre Circle, what's Wells Court. Deidre Circle goes on down to the creek. Wells Court is just that one little jaunt to the left.
Well, which I've seen both where Wells Court is just this and goes to the creek. You know, it's been called both. And we've got the sign there in the middle that indicates that straightaway between where the small, very tiny cul-de-sac and that straightaway is Wells Court. So, and then, but that's what's going to be paved. That entire
Deidre Circle, Wells Court portion.
Yes.
So if you come down Deidre Circle to the right, that's going to be paved.
To the right and the left. That's all Wells Court. Yes. Both right and that small left.
Okay. Well, I think technically, according to resident, that's actually Deidre Circle that's back there. So as long as let's make sure that's really, really bad there.
Yes.
So all of Wells Court, including the Deidre Circle Wells Court
Yes,
portion.
that's what we're, yes.
And then basically.
And that's the discussion I have Dave Reed here with Ajax Paving to go over any specifics on that. But we've collaborated several times about that specific stretch.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Didn't we reclamate Lantern and Candlelight?
We probably did reclamate because we reclamated as many city streets as we can for the amount of money that we set aside.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, council wanted me to go in the direction of the lowest rated streets, which Candlelight did. I added Lantern Court because Lantern Court at the time rated as 6. But I remember at one time that you pointed out that there were several patches done, which these pictures don't show because I pulled them from Google Mapping. But I know that those patches are there.
Yeah.
And that there were several patches that were done because of the Duke Energy power poles and everything like that.
Yes.
So main breaks that were done. So the fact that the deployment, they're going to be literally right there on Candle Lake Court, which did rate a 4. Might as well do Lantern Court that was right there anyway and include that. So
That being said, are any streets included or not included in this list that were not reclamated?
the streets that were below a 4, the majority, I don't have the whole list here, but they were all private. They would have been added to that. So that's the thing. I would have, if I had 2s or single digits, which they weren't rated because they were all private roads. So during the survey, they didn't rate them. So, but I'd have to compare the Reclamite list of all the streets that were done on that list to that. But I went from council direction to pave the lowest rated streets in order to raise our RSL rating, because that's the goal. The goal is you want to increase that rating over time.
Sure. My concern is that the Reclamite process, we was only supposed to Reclamite, obviously, the roads that we couldn't resurface, and we may have did some extras or whatever. But what I don't want to see is that the ones we didn't Reclamite, the intent would have been to repave those, right? And so if we're not repaving those in this first section, but we're paving some that were treated, that seems contradictory to me.
Well, you got to understand that the Reclamite treatment, the company that did the Reclamite, they went, like I said, we tried to do as many city streets as possible. I can cross-reference that list, but once again,
well, I believe it was anything under 6, it wasn't going to help, right? That was the
no, and that's the whole thing, is that many of the streets that we reclamited, many of the streets that we reclamited, still rate 4, 6. That's not going to improve that rating. It's going to keep them from. It's going to save them some time from getting worse, but it's not going to seal up the cracks or anything like that. It wasn't crack sealing. It wasn't mill and overlay or anything like that. The Reclamite is just basically a spray treatment that would help preserve for a few more extra years. It was the first step, and believe it or not, I'm glad that we did that step, because for 30, 40 years we never did any type of process. So to do that process for the majority of city streets was a great direction. But there are still mill and overlay, and other processes that we need to consider for a lot of our city streets. This is just the beginning. There's several other streets that probably could fall under mill and overlay. But what I also tried to do was balance streets throughout all 3 sides of the city in order to accommodate most of our residents. That's why I included Broadway. It's still rated a 4. That was added. Candlelight, Lantern. On the north side of the city, it was council direction. They didn't want to do all of Bay Boulevard, and that was the first proposal. But that first section between US 19 and Wilkins is in terrible shape. Very, very bad shape. That's why between that and Ritchie Drive are going to have the base and everything redone on those because of how bad they are. So if I can come back, if you give me, I have to take a moment to look over this.
Well, here's my concern. Obviously, the Reclamite's down. We spent the money to put it down. The intent was that we would not be milling and replacing the ones that we treated. And so and I don't know if we had a set amount, we had to use it up. We had extra that wasn't cost us anymore. We just went ahead and did it. But if we made a decision to Reclamite roads that wasn't going to add much value, we're going to turn around and resurface them anyway, I'd rather spent that Reclamite money towards paving as opposed to just put it down there. Same thing as we're going to switch out water pipes. We don't want to put a new road in, tear it up, put water pipes in, and put a new road down. We don't want to Reclamite stuff. We're going to tear up and put new pavement down. So I understand we were trying to. It almost sound, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounded like you said we had a pot of money, we wanted to use it all up. Well, that's we authorized a pot of money to do a job that we were under an impression that was going to only treat roads that we weren't going to come back and tear up and resurface.
The majority that we had that were 6s and above for Reclamite.
Right.
If Broadway or any of those other streets were done, it was because we had enough money to do those 4s. We aimed for 6 and above, when it came to reclamite.
Right, yeah, enough money, so, but
But
right now, we had enough
I'm
money to
still-
do candlelight and lantern, so we did it, and we spent that money, and now we're gonna basically throw that money away because we're gonna build and resurface it.
Yeah, but it's still RSL rated a 4. I mean, that reclamite is not gonna improve that.
Oh, Right, no, I get that, but we spent money to reclamite it.
Well, because you still want to preserve the street that you had, regardless. You could say tonight not to pave candlelight lantern, that's fine.
Right,
But that reclamite would have been needed. I mean, it goes either way. But like I said, the recommendation is to take care of the lowest rated streets. It's still a low rated street.
And I'm 100% on board with that. Like I said, if they're 4s and they need replaced, let's replace them. But the heartburn I have is that it sounds like we threw away some money. So in the future, let's make sure that we are good stewards of the resources that we provide. So it sounds like we may have, if our turnaround, I mean, that reclamite didn't help us another 6 months, 7 months of life. We probably could have got by without doing it. I don't know what it costs. It probably wasn't a whole lot anyway. But just as we approach things in the future, let's make sure that every dollar spent is a dollar that needs to be spent. So I feel like in a couple of these roads, we may have threw some money in the trash, which we don't have a lot to do with that. So that's the only comments I had. Anybody else? Comments?
I think this is a great start. Appreciate that we move forward. Our window is getting smaller. Also, we got to take into consideration as we do the paving. 4 months, we're entering the hurricane season, and it's very unpredictable that time, which will cause numerous delays if that happens. We have a window to move forward. I say we move forward, and let's take. Otherwise, from day one, I said we don't lose this ARPA.
This was one of the reasons why I wanted to get this in front of council as soon as possible, because of that window. I spoke to Mr. Reed about that window, and he's optimistic that we can get this done before June 1st, which is the beginning of hurricane season. Now, of course, our hurricane issues don't start until September later in that year, but we're hoping to have that, taken care of by then. So we've talked about deployment and timeline, and he's confident he can meet that.
I'm all for it. That sounds like a motion, Tom. You like a motion? Or?
Motion to approve.
Who wants that?
Oh, that's
That sounds best.
Doesn't make it.
Motion and second. All, any further discussion? Anyone from the public like to speak? Welcome.
Yeah, Dave Reed with Ajax Paving.
They could look at the podium. We're sound challenged.
Dave Reed with Ajax Paving, and I drove 3 hours and 45 minutes, so I hope somebody has a question.
Did you really?
Yeah, it's supposed to be about 2 hours, but the Sarasota traffic was on I-75, so. If you don't have any questions, it's fine, but I'm here.
You're going to promise this is going to be done before June?
Yeah, we shouldn't have a problem getting that done. Our schedule's tight, but that's what Mr. Licari told us you guys want, and like you said, moving quick like this, making a commitment, we'll be able to put that in our schedule and fill a window that we're probably talking about 2 to 3 weeks here to get all this work done. So
The only concern, and it's the Ridge Road extension, which is Ritchie. During the day, that is a terrible area because everybody, Walmarts, Wawas, even the residents going back, that's a nightmare. I don't know what your plans are, if there's any night work or what.
I guess we can discuss logistics. Night work.
We have
allow it night work.
I mean, there's school buses that utilizes that all the time, and so there's.
We do a lot of night work.
Concerns.
Yeah, we do a ton of night work. So if it's better at night, we can work that out.
Yeah, we discussed that in the high traffic volume through there. He's going to have complete MOT set up and deployment for that. But nighttime, they've done nighttime work, and it's going to be definitely considered, especially for that area. And the fact that they're probably going to do Ritchie and Bay Boulevard simultaneously because they're going to be deployed in that same area. So those are two arteries that are literally coming out of the entire north side of the city. So more or less, we'll discuss that as we move forward.
I'm happy. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Good.
Driving now.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
I just wanted to be helpful if I could, so.
Nobody yet. Really? Here, have it. I don't want it.
Can you just explain to them, just in briefly, because I know we've been here for a little bit, but the process for both Ritchie and Bay Boulevard?
Yeah.
Why the extensive work for that?
Yeah, so those, we took a pretty close look at those. If you look at those streets, I believe, let's see, Bay Boulevard originally was proposed to do the whole length months ago. And when Mr. Licari gave us the second list, that wasn't on it, so I inquired why, and we were looking at, what is that, Ritchie? Or Broadway, right there?
Ritchie.
Ritchie, okay, Ritchie. I'm sorry. I don't know your streets as well as you guys do. But just a block away there, the street's in pretty bad shape, and our recommendation was to mill deeper, move about 5.5 inches, and replace with an asphalt base under there. And I just suggested that since we're there, and the job is really kind of quite small in terms of the way that it's broken up into several pieces, that it'd actually make it a little bit better job for us to be able to do that, you know, at the same time. And it would also improve the street for you guys. That is by far the worst length of road, that last block before US 19. And it looks identical. It's all broken up, potholes and cracks and, you know, several different temporary patches for trenches and all that. And I thought, you know, if we're a block away fixing this street, we should be fixing that street too. And we just thought the public would be asking you questions why you didn't if we were right there. So convenient for us to be a block away and just be able to kind of move the resources around. And you know, so that was my suggestion. And so, yeah, those will be getting 5.5 inches of asphalt. And the top layer is actually a polymer modified asphalt. It looks like whatever's going on there, and it sounds like a lot of traffic, the polymer modified is a stronger binder. So it helps in both high and low temperatures. So it's more rigid in the high temperature, and it's more flexible in the cold temperatures. So it doesn't wear and tear quite as bad. It looks like the road's been really torn up. So that was our suggestion for those two. So
Another quick question. I don't know if this is part of the scope, but the drainage, especially there on Bay Boulevard off of 19, no matter when it rains, there's a large puddle for a quarter to almost half the street coming off 19. I don't know if it's going to be raised or if the scope is to assist some way with the drainage. And not only that area, but some of the other areas as well.
yeah, we can look at that. We didn't do any engineering here. Generally, this is just a mill and pave, you know, remove and replace. But typically in that type of situation, there are places we can fix minor problems. I don't know how major the problem is, but we could take a look and see. I don't know if paving is necessarily the only solution there for you, to be honest. Well, I don't know anything about it, about that particular problem that you're mentioning. So
I'll bring that point up to our Public Works Utility Director and make sure that as we're going to be deployed, any of these specific areas that the grades may need to be raised or anything like that before they mill and overlay, that we can go ahead and get those done before that process is done. So then everything, you know, all the grades and on whatever streets they're going to do is at the proper height and would cause less puddling and whatnot in those areas.
you can do a little bit of cross slope correction with the milling a little bit deeper on the side and not quite as much in the middle and get a better crown and things like that. What we're talking about on the residential streets is 1.5 inches, so, you know, we can do something with that. But, you know, if you've got a major drainage problem that's you know, doesn't have anything to do with the actual profile of the road, there's not much we can do other than, you know, the best we can do with the geometry you have. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Real quick before we move on, is anybody else public next week? Okay. On the Ritchie Drive repair and resurface, there's one question I forgot to ask. It says from US 19 to the end of the block at Wilkins Street, so all of Wilkins from 19 to the dead end there. It says including the intersection radius returns. Does that mean we're going to mill or replace some of the Wilkins? Or no? What's that including the intersection radius returns mean?
So we got a picture of it. I'll show you.
Okay. Because we're not doing any Wilkins.
No, we're not going to be doing Wilkins, but pretty much it's going to come up to that intersection. So it might blend in, know, between Ritchie and Wilkins, but
Yeah, absolutely.
It just means through the intersection and around the end of the radius there.
Yeah, it's kind of my thought. So just a little bit of
Oh, I'm pretty
in
good.
the turn lane.
Yep.
Do you want to see this?
Sure.
So this fans out. So basically, a little bit of Wilkins gets covered in the intersection. That's kind of what I thought it meant.
We'll pass that to Tom. Thank you.
No, he can't see. He's all going over there.
It's too far away.
Just so council understands, there's also a section of DOT road that comes in just a little bit off of both Bay and Wilkins. We will not be touching that because that belongs to DOT. So we're going to be doing everything from that belongs to the city in. So and
Off of 19, there'd be a little gap there. That's DOT.
Yeah, there's a small gap, but that road is in much more better condition anyway, and it's going to blend in. But we can't go into DOT's roadway.
These graphics would have been nice material to include there. So as we do more roads, definitely do that. Just clarify that's just the verbiage. Okay. We vote all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Last up is old business. I did have something I want to ask on old business. It dropped off was the light at Wilkins.
Yeah, so the light.
There's a lift station right there. Is it, that's the one on the pole?
That's the new light, yes.
Why'd they put it there instead of the actual post at the corner?
A couple reasons. Well, the fact that that entire corner was dark, the fact that the lift station is maintained by our technicians. We wanted to provide light for them as well, so that's why that was there. If there's still an issue, we could go forward with another light. I noticed that the new kind of light is LED. I've been out there a few times. I mean, it's council's preference if you want to add a secondary, but that was the location picked because of just that entire area was dark, and then I thought of the lift station as well.
So the intersection also was the point. I don't know because it's here's the road and the lights basically pointing out here. I don't know if photometrics are better to angle it back towards the intersection to help light that up. Maybe it would cast more light. I have to look at night to see coverage, but maybe because I was under the impression it was going to go on that one pole right to the corner. But I get your point. It'd be good to light that up too. But maybe just angle it.
Yeah, I could talk to them about just your so to basically turn it west, just angle it west a little bit. Okay,
that help shift the light down towards the intersection. The other, we covered Blue Point. The 100th anniversary, we mentioned need to establish a planning committee. What y'all's thoughts on? Do we advertise? I guess we got to create one by ordinance or ad hoc committee. We can just probably do because that's what we need to get staffing for it. So I didn't know what the procedure was actually establish it.
Probably by resolution.
By resolution.
Yeah, by resolution.
I know that the Port Ritchie Chamber of Commerce would like to be a part of
that help out.
Yeah.
By resolution, you may create ad hoc committees to advise the city council on specific matters affecting the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of the city or on matters relating to the operation of city government.
So I guess by consensus for the next agenda, can we get put a resolution for the creative committee? That way we can get it broadcast and hopefully get some people to sign up for that.
Just so you know that there is a provision in here, and I don't know the time frame we're talking about, that the committee cannot exist for in excess of 120 days.
Oh
no, unless you approve differently. I'm sorry. I didn't read the whole sentence.
Okay.
I tell you that all the time. Read everything.
Yeah, please. So next meeting, if we can add that.
Yep. We can include city staff.
Each member of the city council may nominate a city resident to serve on the committee. The city council by majority vote shall select the members and alternates to the committee from that list of nominees. Council members may serve on one or more ad hoc committees, but may not constitute a majority of the committee. That answer your question?
I don't know. Forget it. Your question was. I just want to make sure that staff is like the major, I think the city staff need to be the major,
I think there should be some staff
organizer
representation on
of
it,
this.
actually. Would be good to have staff on the committee.
Well, no, they need to run, I mean, they're the ones that have the money, they need to be running it, and, you know, and everybody else this is a city event. So it needs to be run by the city, and then all of us are there to help them and assist them and to give them ideas and suggestions.
Any idea on the
As part
size?
of it, huh?
Any idea on the size, you guys? Make it 9, maybe like the CAC or
Yeah, no,
more?
that's fine, that's a good size number in case
I
people
agree
don't
with
show up.
Mrs. Rodriguez, having city staff, our residents would love to dream. The city staff has a reality. So, I mean, bringing that balance together, I mean, would help tremendously.
Yeah, I think it should be city staff and city residents.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, she has to draft the resolution, so we do 9.
Mr. Copper, I think, needs to be on it.
He should chair it.
I'm a resident.
You are.
And he's a resident, so you can sit in 2 chairs, you can jump back and forth.
And I can dream.
So maybe draft it with the city manager as the chair, and then,
They have to elect the chair at the first meeting.
Yeah,
they have to
that needs to be elected when you get everybody
well, how'd that
together.
work for the comprehensive land use plan? He's the chair of that. Oh, that's by the charter.
That's-
Okay.
I'm not,
That's
I'm
different.
looking at the ad hoc committees, not
Gotcha, a little
the real, the
Okay,
rules are
well, you
different.
might get the chair.
We can strongly suggest it to the folks that it'll get chosen.
It includes CAC members, and then residents.
I think at this point, what I would need for a resolution is, what you want to do, which I understand, what the purpose is. If you want to limit the number. I mean, I guess if you want to make sure certain categories are represented, we can add that, you know, citizen that's not connected to, you know, doesn't work here or whatever. It can include those categories, or you can just say nine people and all of you get to pick, and then you get to vote.
Yeah. Maybe
No,
work
that's
with-
okay,
work with
that's
Matt. You guys figure out what you think's best, and then bring it back. Well, if we
We can
can
do
see
that.
what tweak it. So,
That's good.
Would you be okay if there would be non-residents on that? I'm just thinking business owners that may not live in the city.
Well, they pay, yeah, if they're business owners, they pay taxes to this city, absolutely.
yeah, that's a good point.
We can do that.
Okay. Any other old business discussion?
The sand at Oldsmar Park, since we're redoing the park, is that part of that?
Yes.
Done.
Get your flip flop.
Check that one. Get my kayak out.
Anything else? All right, look for a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Let's take a 5-minute break. We'll come back for a quick